Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the budget review session, July 22nd, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting in order and inform the public about the location of the Open Meetings Act posted in the council chambers and is accessible to anybody by the public. At this time, we'd like to take a quick moment of silence for a gentleman that passed away this morning that had been working with the city on quite a few projects and a lot of things in our community, and it was real community-oriented guy. So I don't know if you knew that, but Kelby Herman passed away this morning. So I'd like to just take a quick moment and think about that, and then we'll move on. Okay. So before we get started, let's lay out the frame, let's lay out the groundwork how we're going to conduct this meeting today. In the spirit of time, I was kind of in the impression, and Scott, you can correct me, Randy, you can correct me, when we get into department heads' budgets, you were just going to go over capital expenditures, correct? And then Randy's going to do the bulk of the meeting with the, the COLA, the pensions, the adjustment to wages, and kind of go through that. And then once we get it, because everybody's department is affected by that, are we going to try to do it that way, or are we going to?
I think all division heads that are depicted here are ready to talk, should need a rise. If you don't want them to, that's fine too. But they're all mentally prepared and prepped to, and talked about, not necessarily talking about insurance rates and
Yes.
the office rubber bands and whatnot, but the important things, the higher dollar things that have been cut, the sacrifices that they made
Right.
to put this budget together.
So do we want to touch on those first and then go into the meat of the budget, which would be the, COLA and
Do you have something prepared to
pensions
kick
and?
off with?
I have what's in the staff memo that I was gonna go over, which is basically what staff
Okay.
put together for a suggested way that we could
Probably a good way to
get the
start.
budget
Oh,
balanced.
I didn't hear him.
Probably be a good way to start, to have the general overview of the staff memo.
So if we go for the general overview, that's going to be the bulk of the questions we're having today, obviously, and the interaction. So do you want to save that to the end or start with it right now?
I think it'd be a good place to kick off, so that
Okay.
everybody has a foundation of where we're at so far. And then
Sounds good.
Going through at that.
Okay, all right, perfect. Before we get started, I need to take roll call.
Greenquist, Arns,
Here.
Webb,
Here.
McCarthy,
Here.
Beckman. Here. Jensen, Langy.
Here.
Hildebrand,
Here.
Mayor.
I'm here. All right, Randy, you're up.
In the agenda packet, you've got a cuts and adds sheet, as well as my staff memo. And in the staff memo, I went through some changes staff suggested that could be made to the budgets as they were presented at the July 1st and July 10th budget work sessions. Staff got together, I believe it was on July 11th, to review those. I wasn't at that meeting, I was out of town, but I talked to staff and tried to distill what the staff recommendations were or suggestions were in that staff memo. I'll start off focusing on the general fund, but the cuts and adds sheet has changes that affect all the funds, but the focus in this will be the general fund. We eliminated the lodging occupation tax. That was in the original budget at $400,000. The general fund property tax increase wasn't eliminated, but it was reduced almost $350,000, going from about $482,000 presented at the July 1 budget review session to about $132,000. That'd be an increase of 2.25% from the prior year property tax. This is less than the 2.4% annual inflation rate we had when the city's budget instructions were issued on April 18th. That reflected the March 1 CPI. The most recent change in the Consumer Price Index as of June 1 was an annual increase of 2.7%. It's well below both of those. The city's property tax rate is expected to be reduced by about 1.3 cents if we go with that $132,000 increase in property tax. That's based on an expected valuation increase of 7%. These tax reductions total almost $750,000 and reduce the general fund tax increase to a little over $4 million, which is mostly the voter-approved half-cent sales tax for the police station and streets. Taking that into account, the general fund taxes only increase a little over $47,000 or less than 0.25%. The general fund revenue reductions are offset by staff suggested expenditure changes. The 2.4% COLA is reduced to 1.5%, and this will result in a general fund savings of a little over $162,000. The budgets presented at the earlier review sessions contained a 2% increase under the city's contribution rate for all three pension plans. That remains for the fire plan, since statutorily they're required to increase their pension by 2% in the next budget year. But we're suggesting that the general fund and fire pension increases be reduced to 1% this year. And that results in a savings of $119,000 in the general fund. The 1.5% COLA and the 1% pension increase for fire and general employees is a 2.5% increase in compensation, and that approximates the 2.4% CPI increase as of March 1st. As I mentioned earlier, the police statutorily will get a 2% pension increase. We also suggest cutting the comparability adjustments in half and funding those over 2 years. That will save a little over $82,000 in the general fund. We suggest paying for the city's $12,500 contribution to the turf fund from Keno, and funding the council chambers chairs for $13,000 and the $17,000 for those flashing beacon pedestrian crossing signals from council priority dollars. Staff also suggests funding the $100,000 budgeted for the senior center supervisor from senior center contributions this year. The parking study budget in engineering is eliminated. $20,000 was budgeted in the 24-25 fiscal year, and another $20,000 in the 25-26 fiscal year. So the $20,000 that's budgeted in 24-25 won't be spent, resulting in a $20,000 increase in beginning fund balance. The budget for computers and laptops was adjusted to more accurately reflect the actual cost of these items. The number of computers and laptops stayed the same. We just reduced what we were budgeting for the price of each one of those. In addition to the above reductions, there were almost $94,000 of other general fund expenditure reductions, for a total of $549,000 of general fund expenditure reductions. And if you want the detail of those are shown on the attached cuts and adds spreadsheet that's in the agenda packet. Partially offsetting the expenditure reductions is several expenditure increases, primarily $27,000 added to the housing budget to pay for hiring a replacement accounting specialist 3 months before the current accounting specialist retires, to allow for cross-training. Ending general fund balance is expected to exceed the staff recommended targeted balance of $4,360,000. As I mentioned earlier, I'm focusing on the general fund, but the cuts and adds spreadsheet in the agenda packet includes changes to all the funds. And the effect of these changes is that the total budget goes from about $148.9 million to $148.2 million. This is $9.6 million more than last year's total budget of $138.6 million. Most of this is related to the additional half-cent sales tax. Statutes require that sales tax be deposited in the general fund, but we budgeted a transfer out to the capital projects fund where that will be spent. We also have unspent proceeds of the current year, additional half-cent in the capital projects fund at the beginning of the year. If you net these effects out, the budget only increases about $323,000 or less than 0.25%. That's kind of a summary of what we have done or what we're suggesting could be done to get the budget in balance.
Randy, with this current proposal, how much will we be drawing down the general fund for the new fiscal year?
We'd be drawing that down almost 4/5 of the $1.3 million that was the personnel settlements that we had this year. I think that's, you have that number, Andy, Sheila? It's around $1 million, I believe, from what it was last year. Budgeted ending fund balance. Yes, I believe that's correct.
I thought the original proposal, correct me if I'm wrong, we were gonna put everything in there before. I thought the original proposal was drawing down about, was it 493,000 or was it 900,000? I can't remember. Did that number change with this proposal versus the last proposal?
What we're proposing now draws down fund balance, I believe, about $120,000 more than what was in the original.
Is that depicted in the packet?
Yeah, there should be if you go down to the end of the general fund, Lyle.
I'll find the
Yeah.
needle in the haystack.
That 122,000, right about where your pointer is, Lyle. Just go down a little bit. That's the amount we were over the targeted balance for, and by targeted balance, I mean the balance we had last year plus 4/5 of the personnel settlement costs, $1,329,000. That's shown just to the left of where the Lyle's cursor is up there. Where we ended up at, if the council would want to adopt these suggested changes, would be only $10,000 above that $4,360,000. So we've reduced it by fund balance by $110,000 from where it was prior to this. In other words, compared to the July 1 and July 10th budgets that were brought forward to the review sessions.
So Randy, just to summarize what you said, basically went from a 2.4 COLA to 1.5 on the COLA,
Yes,
and then recommendation on pension, 2% fire, 1%
2%
or
police.
2% police, 1% fire. And then staff, what was the staff recommendation for pension?
1% for fire and general employees, and 2% for police. We can't change the police, so
Yeah,
we're
right, but so
stuck
is
with
1% across the
1%.
board for all staff on this particular
Yes.
budget, with the 1% with including fire, okay. I think you've got 13,000 in there for chairs for up here, basically.
Yes.
Yes.
I think we can get by without the chairs. Yeah, that's a lot for chairs, so I would recommend, I'm just suggesting,
that
I
out
don't,
there.
it's just because these chairs, you sit so low, then you can't adjust them up and down. So I think that was the main reason, but I think we can get by looking like little people up here for a year.
take
We
those
don't need
out.
that in there when everybody's making sacrifices, there doesn't need
Yeah, we
any.
put those in there because some of the elected officials were complaining about them.
And I see you cut the World Herald and Lincoln Star out of here.
As directed.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was in there.
You haven't read those?
I haven't read them, so. Right, any discussion, this is probably the bulk of the discussion today, is gonna be on these items, so.
Randy, can you kind of go over again for me one more time?
the police will be getting 2%, but fire will only be getting 1%.
Statutes require the police to get a 2% increase this year. Statutes require fire to get a 1% increase this year and a 1% increase next year.
So they're not looked at all as first responders, so to speak. Isn't that what the statute read? Am I thinking wrong?
The fire statute or bill was passed the year before, and then the police bill was passed in the current legislative session, and both of those end up resulting in a 2% increase for the first responders. It's just the amount of time that's spread over. The police get it all this coming fiscal year. Fire gets it split 1% this coming fiscal year and 1% the year after.
That's statute.
By statute, yes.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I would like to discuss, though, is in regarding COLAs and how we utilize COLAs when we have a decrease in sales tax or a no growth in sales tax, how that works long-term, you know, with the ability to pay for the increase in the COLA, the longevity of that if we're seeing a trend with sales tax this year trending down, and then this coming fiscal, we're looking at an even trend as the last few months. Maybe it'll tick up, but it'd be nice to have some automatic triggers within our budget, so during the fiscal, staff has already got, and departments know how to handle that. And so when we come to the budget session, we're all on the same page without having to get into in-depth discussion about those particular things, because typically in the past, COLAs have been primarily funded through, I'm assuming, property taxes. You know, and then the base growth of the sales tax base was traditionally funding kicking more into the beginning balance of, I mean, I don't know how you pay out your bills, but I'm assuming that's how we were growing the beginning balance, along with the fact that the police department was understaffed for the last few years. That made a big portion to the growth in that beginning balance, and then the increase in sales tax we had seen the past 8-9 years helped contribute to that also. But when you come into a budget session, like we have today, this is kind of new. This is a new look at the budget that we typically don't see, because typically you're seeing a sales tax growth. I've never sat up here and seen a reduction in sales tax, and then a projection for the following year of, similar to stable, so that's where I just like to look at these things and see what our long-term projection is, especially when we're talking about cutting a lot of capital expenditures and what that looks like, because by essentially approving this year's budget, you're already approving next year's budget. And if we put ourselves in a position where we can't afford any capital expenditures next year, then you're looking at a substantial levy increase. So I think that's all stuff we need to iron out within this first portion of this budget reading, or review session, I guess, on how that looks. And I don't know what that is. I just want to bring it up because I think that's something that would be very handy through the year, so each department knows going into the next fiscal, and everybody's tracking, so we're all on the same page going into the next fiscal without, any animosity or, here the council's pushing back, the department has, those conversations are always tough conversations when you sit up here and you're not necessarily in favor of, or you want to do what's right and give people the necessary raises they deserve, but then what's it look like with our budget going into the next fiscal? So those are just questions I have, and I think that's something we need to look at. If we could see a projection of, with property taxes and the assessment values doing what they're doing, and then sales tax at a 1% to 2% growth rate. I mean, 2% growth rate's kind of misleading because that doesn't quite meet inflation. So that means you're off 3% automatically. And if you're only seeing a 1%, and if we're down 1% this year, we're actually down 4% in the scheme of things. If that makes sense, because you didn't see any inflation.
Purchasing power is definitely down by the amount of the inflation, plus what our sales tax
So we're
is
down
so-
4%, essentially where we should be.
Yeah, in this case, it'd be about 3.4%.
Now, if we're seeing a 1% uptick this year in sales tax, that means next year, add 3%, there's 4, so now you're down 6% next year. So,
So the other thing to comment on what you're saying, Shane, is if we have a deduction in our beginning balance now, we'll have a greater one for the years to come. If we don't see the increase in sales tax, traditionally, like we have.
sales tax Norfolk's bread and butter, it's been that way for,
Right,
since
but
forever.
but it's kind of dry at the moment, so.
Right.
So what do we do? I mean, how do we sustain a beginning balance budget of 16%? Because now we're 14%.
Well, it's unsustainable. It just is.
Okay.
So now that's what we need to get at, is what's realistic this year, so we don't trigger a mill levy increase next year.
I understand.
It all sounds fun and good everybody's worked extremely, I give everybody credit, they've worked extremely hard to get this budget to less than 2% growth rate. I mean, I don't think the city of Norfolk has ever done that. Not since I've seen 3% at the least. I know, Scott, you've been around a lot longer than anybody else here. Have you ever seen a 2% growth or 1 point, whatever you've got for this particular budget?
Yeah, there might be cases where we had some unusual, bond issue or something in the prior year budget, and then.
Right.
But normally, yeah, you would have.
I mean, taking out the half-cent sales tax increase, that's on top of what we're talking about today, because that's going for the police department. So we're essentially you need to kind of put that up here and then review what's below that. So that's the honest conversation we need to have and get to where that looks like long-term. Because the next phase is obviously the worst phase, and that's starting, then you go into cutting services and how that works. But that's kind of where we're at. So we just need to get through that, have those discussions, have those honest discussions as we move forward with this budget. I think we're looking timeline. Lyle, what are we looking at here on our timeline?
For today's meeting? Or
Well, no, just long-term. We've got, our last date for approving the budget is the 30th?
we got to have that done by August 30th?
Yeah,
Or, well, this budget will be formally approved in September.
right.
It's either the first meeting or second meeting. We think we get the.
But we'd like
property
to
tax
have,
valuation.
Randy likes to have everything rolling so we can have prepared and ready to roll for that first or
Right.
second meeting in September.
Because whatever changes take place here, whatever potentially take place in early August, if we meet again, it doesn't just happen on a spreadsheet. There's a bunch of staff time that goes into making sure that fits into the rest of the documentation, the trickle-down effect that takes place to allow it to get printed off and stay on track with final publication and everything else.
And
You've
got to let the county know, I believe it's by September 4th, what your property tax is, so they know if you're what your property tax request is, at least if you're going to be over the threshold for the combined
pink sheet.
countywide, the pink postcard hearing. I don't get the impression that the council wants to increase property tax very much, if at all. So that's probably not an issue here, but actually getting the budget put together so we can get it out, get it distributed. We need to get that decided fairly quickly.
So I guess, yeah, go ahead.
And we get the property tax valuations from the county late August?
Yeah, August 20th, I believe, or did they move that back this year? So August 20th.
That's one variable here
Right.
that's factored in, that's not known until late in the game.
Yeah, so we're looking at first meeting of September, maybe the second meeting of September, we'll be approving this.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I just want to get that out there for council so they know that as we're reviewing this and going through it, you've got for your suggestions. But we just need to be, here's the thing, this is an open meeting. We're discussing this, everything's out in the open, right? And that's the way we want it to be. We don't have the opportunity to, in years past, a lot of these budget meetings were done in that conference room. And we sat and talked and everybody threw around ideas and you said things and you might hurt somebody's feelings because you said something about the department, but we don't have that right. So we're gonna have to do that today. So you're gonna have to be open and honest, department heads, about what you feel about the suggestions we make, because honestly, you've got to sell why we're doing what we're doing. If we're gonna do a 1% across the board on the pensions, you need to explain to us why that's a good thing for your particular department. If we're gonna do an increase in the COLA, we need to know why that's a particular, if we don't do that, I know in some instances, it could trigger a negative effect with certain departments and how they hire and recruit and stuff like that. So this is the only place to have the discussion, so we just have to do it. You just gotta, don't be alarmed if you're up here saying, or somebody's questioning you, this isn't about feelings today, it's about what we have in front of us, right? And this budget is not the best thing we've ever seen. Obviously, I've never seen something like this
These
as far
revenues,
as,
you mean?
with the revenues, yes. So I just want people to be aware of that. Nobody's here trying to tell you you've done a horrible job or you're not doing a good job. That's not the case. It's just, up here, it's very black and white, right? Because we're just looking at numbers. In your position, it's different because you've got employees, you've got feelings, you've got things tied to things. So we just need to get through that and not be worried about what you're saying back and forth, because, right, I'm assuming that's what, okay, so.
that's right on
let's put it
track.
out there, it's just, it's a little different setting, we changed the way we do this, to have it more open and giving us more time, so you don't really have that opportunity to say something and then take it back, because it's going right on the record, so.
Sure. So, I guess, with that being said, do you want to go down through these budgets like we've talked about and touch the high points?
Well, I think let's just stick on these and let's get this ironed out.
Okay.
This is the most important part of the budget. The rest of the stuff is all gonna fall in place for department, right? We're talking about the pension, talking about the COLA, and we're talking about, so Randy, what did we do with the adjustment to wages? The survey that Jessica had done?
Before we go down there, Mayor, if I may, I heard a couple things in your comments there, and maybe something that Randy can chime into as well, but, so as you started the comments, you were talking about our budget adjustments and the impact to this year and how that impact goes next year and where we are with revenue sources and income next year. You know, just like all of our budgets, we project, in our revenue budgets, we usually project about 10 years out, or we have a model that goes somewhere between 5 and 10 years out. So we have projected sales tax as we look, and I think Randy and Sheila are certainly more prepared to answer that question, but as a function of this year's budget, I believe there's been an adjustment to how we're modeling next year in terms of what we, for sales tax revenue. So I think that if they're, not to put them on the spot, but I think that would be a good conversation to have right now, just so you understand how we project what's going to happen next year in
Right,
terms of revenue.
typically I've seen those, I haven't seen that this year.
Correct.
So it's a little bit different, usually we'll see those projections, we haven't
Yeah.
gone through that.
We came into this year with a certain projection, whatever that was, 3%, 4% sales tax. That didn't occur, and so this year we're down. We're budgeting next year's budget being down. Our revenue projections for the upcoming year, I believe, are flat. But I don't want
Yeah,
to,
they're
don't
pretty
put me
flat.
on the record for that.
I think Sheila's calling up the
Let's look over to
long-term
Sheila and
financial
Randy
plan
for that
as we
projection. But
speak.
that's, and I mention that just to give you some comfort that as we're looking at revenue projections next year, to understand what that projection is, because that's what we have to budget against as we move into this year's budget, which is in front of you, as we work through this budget and start to approach, next year, come March, when we start working on our capital improvement our budgets. April, we'll start working on this budget again. And so we are already working on fiscal year '27. And so if Randy and Sheila might be able to add
I
to
guess,
that.
in years past though, Steve, in regards to the COLA, let's go back to the year we did a 6% increase in COLA. That was 2 years ago, I believe.
22, 23.
22, 23, okay. The increase primarily was funded by the expansion of the annexation, sorry, the annexations. And when council approved that, you saw a increase to property taxes by about 1.5 million. And that increase in COLA was about 1.5 million. But that was reflected, I don't know who all voted in favor of that, I can't speak on that, but when that passed, the people that hung their hat on passing that knew that there was a long-term funding source tied to that. So it made it was something, and I knew that you guys adjusted your budgets, corrected a bunch of different stuff on our pay scales and whatnot, but that was held to the fact that that was a long-term, that 1.5 is going to be there because of the annexations and whatnot. So with this year's, we're looking at the COLA, because I've had conversations with some people up here, not everyone, but the recommendation to me was, now this is, and I said it in our staff meeting the other day, 2% fire, 1%, 2% police, 1% fire on pension. The other pensions were going to be adjusted accordingly as far as what the revenue streams look like coming in. And then the COLA was going to be zero. I mean, that, I'm just putting it out there.
delivering the message.
0% of the COLA. And then the adjustments to the wages, or the study Jessica had, that was something that we thought happened over time. You couldn't correct it in one shot of the budget. So it was going to be something we'd spread out over time, adjusting with the revenue streams coming in. And then that's where I keep coming back to that sales tax, or property, or sales tax, and what that means for the COLA. And so that was just, those are the conversations, some of the conversations I've had. Not everybody up here probably feels the same way. I don't want to speak for everybody. I'm just, the conversations I had, that was what some of the council, and obviously the 400,000 on the lodging tax was not a fan favorite, and that got removed. So that was some of the conversations we had. So now we need to get to a point where if they're doing the 1.5% increase in COLA, and we're doing the 1% increase in pensions across the board, how does that look, long-term projection, and what's that look like next year when we're up here sitting here and we're not able to do any capital expenditures because we burn up all our money in this fiscal, because we don't have a revenue stream that's growing except for assessed values, which means no reduction in the mill levy, no reduction, so, and those, it's gonna be a hot topic next year. It's gonna be a hot topic the year after that. And sales and property taxes eventually are not gonna look the same as they look today for all cities and states across the board, because it's going to get changed eventually. And so we have to be, conscious of that. So if we're putting a bunch of pressure on sales, property tax this year, and we don't see revenue streams coming in sales tax next year, I'm concerned where we're moving. And that, this has nothing to do about anybody's performance with the city or whatnot. I mean, obviously, and that's what we need to hear from the departments. If this is going to trigger something extremely negative for your department, we need to know. And that we just gotta say it. And that's what when I was saying at the start of the meeting, I know it's not like how, it's not a subcommittee meeting, it's not just a staff meeting, this is an open public meeting, but we still gotta just get it out there and get it done, so.
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of those things. I mean, I can sit here and talk about it, Scott can talk about it, Randy or Steven, but these division heads are the ones that are the tip of the spear. They lead the people that meet with the citizens, and they're the divisions that are gonna suffer from the consequences of having these things shut down, and they're gonna have to be the ones that come up next year and go, I wasn't able to buy this widget this year, I can't, so what else do I get cut out next time? I will say, as we've had multiple discussions about what led to the red in this thing, everybody, to a T, values their employees across the board. So I say that to tell you, use extreme caution in the COLA, because we're asking a lot from a lot of employees that are not here to be able to speak, that talk between divisions and are representative of the organization in general when it comes time to meet the public. That annexation, take that for example, that wasn't necessarily a one-time thing. Yes, there's a revenue that comes in from it, but street division has more streets to plow. Police has more area to patrol. Val, incredibly impacted by that. The growth of that footprint of the community isn't just that, it's, she calculated up to 16 square miles on the outside of it to the ETJ, that her same amount of staff have to do that much more work. And as you probably know, that 2-mile distance is a pretty hot area for somebody to buy property and build because they're outside of the ETJ. So when that grows, that swallows up a whole bunch of that area. So those little things like that, of course that annexation was a big thing, but it has ramifications throughout virtually every division. And it comes to comes to manifest itself here. So we can, you have anything to add, Randy, based on what Mayor was saying?
Oh, not really. I suppose we could go through the long-term financial plan, but the sales tax is a driver of that. And what we have traditionally used for a sales tax projection was looked at the compound growth rate the last 10 years, kind of averages things out. But we have no crystal ball where we can really look and say, we think sales tax is going to increase by X percent or decrease by X percent next year. We were just basing it on the long-term trend and anything that we know of that might affect that. And this year, I think since we were having decreased sales tax, we budgeted next year, or projected next year in the long-term financial plan flat.
Yeah, but not, and then it will increase at 4% after that.
So Randy, let me ask a pointed question, or Sheila. What's your long-term, if you say increase at 4%, do you think this is a blip or is this a long-term situation?
I don't know. We're, in general, kind of following along with what's happening with a lot of other bigger cities in the state. We're probably on the lower side of that just a little bit. So what's happening is happening other places. Maybe if we'd have done some things differently, maybe our sales tax wouldn't have decreased so much. But I don't have a good crystal ball, and I don't think anybody does. These economists are always making projections and predictions, but a lot of time those are wrong. Say what we've traditionally done was look at the long-term compounded growth rate of that sales tax, and that's what we used in our projections. We were more conservative this time. Whether we were conservative enough or too conservative, I don't know. I have no crystal ball that'll tell me what sales tax will do.
And sales tax, the reports we get lag by 2 months, correct?
Yes.
Roughly?
And sales tax drives our budget. I mean, when we have good sales tax, our budget's pretty easy to put together. When our sales tax isn't growing, or as in this year is actually decreasing, we have real problems because that's our largest general fund revenue source. So it's been that way ever since the mid-'80s when we adopted the sales tax. How goes sales tax tends to be how goes our general fund budget.
So mid-August, we should see the next round of sales tax come in, which will be from May, June, from June, July, August. That should, in theory, hopefully, be when a lot of folks started recreating on the waterway. And we'll see what kind of return on investment we get from that. Because prior to that, May was a little chilly, but people have been hopefully coming to town to partake in that in June.
And we've got some construction going on in the city. If you've driven by the Fountain Point area, you see that's coming up out of the ground. That will give us some sales tax.
And Foundry,
Yeah, the Foundry apartments.
Stop.
So those things will give us some sales tax. Exactly what that will do, or if that's going to be offset by other reductions, I don't know. I wish I did. I wish I had that crystal ball.
So it's a little difficult to ask somebody to predict the future, Randy. I'm not.
That's okay, I asked.
Yeah, right. So, as a staff, what do you feel comfortable on as if we did set some sort of automatic adjustment to our budget during the year when we're monitoring sales tax, what that means in the upcoming years with the COLA? Is there a percentage you feel comfortable with that we know that is sustainable and not detrimental to staff the following year? Because what happens is, we all know what happens is all of a sudden you start reducing staff. That's your next, you know what I mean? And that's,
Attrition.
nobody wants to get into that sort of situation. But I'm just trying to
So let me clarify your
be
question.
proactive so we're not getting there.
Tying COLA for the following year directly to the sales tax
I think that'd be smart,
coming
yeah.
in. Because we got sales tax, obviously, number one, MPPD revenue, number two, property tax as well.
Right.
As the primary revenue sources. As we watch those, of course, the only one we can really control is the property tax. We can't force somebody to go out and buy widgets and whatever else they're gonna do. And we can't change the weather. So when the weather's hot and the air conditioners are running and the MPPD bills are higher, it's nothing we can control either. Obviously, property tax is the only one. When we start getting those notifications that sales tax were down, like we mentioned last time, in November, we started monitoring it. December, paid more attention. January, we gaggled all the division heads and said, hey, this is what the trend is going from September, or October, November, December. Pay attention, limit your spending.
Right.
Whether that's formally done in a personnel manual or a purchasing manual, that's fine. We can probably come up with something like that. But we also need to have the fluidity to say, for example, COVID was easy. We're doing something one day, 2 days later, the world is crickets. And tumbleweeds are going through the streets. You don't see anybody. And we're gathered around in the training room, appropriately distanced, of course, saying, what are we going to do? Because revenues are not coming in, nobody's spending anything. So we pumped the brakes on everything immediately. That was, retrospectively, that was a simple one. It was clear and present. This is different. Whether it be a Keno thing or a sales tax thing, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's a little bit less here. It's a little bit less here. And finally, it's that frog in the boiling pot of water where you look back and go, God, that's hot. Of course we saw that. We saw this coming. So having the flexibility as administrative staff, senior leadership, division heads to say, pay attention, division heads, if you can hold off on your purchases, please do it. Or mission critical only. If we need to pump the brakes on refilling positions for a little bit, so be it. I don't know exactly how we would document that. We could explore it. But the importance of having that flexibility to move quickly and swiftly that's not necessarily tied to a document is vital.
Well, but it sort of is, because your capital expenditure wants and needs. You can bring those in, don't do it, or do it, but you just kick it down the road. But payroll is immediate, and that's a need. And so we need to look at, payroll's the biggest part of our budget.
Yep.
Some departments, it's over 80%.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to dial in, because I don't want to be sitting up here next year going, we're gonna have to cut this many people from here, this many people from here. That's why I'm getting where I'm getting at. And I'm asking a lot from you guys right now, today. I feel like I need to probably, and here's the thing, I'm not voting on this budget. Council is. They have to approve it. Unless
might
they get
split, so you're good.
Well, no, if we have a split vote, it needs to go back, because that's what these guys are hired to do, is to agree on something and make a vote. I will not split a budget vote. That's just not, you need to have majority on your budget vote. That's just the way it needs to work. And that's how I feel about it. That to me is when I was a councilman, if you wanted to split a vote like that, that was you being scared to make your vote. I'm gonna call you out on it, guys, and that's what it is. So I wouldn't mind, and I've been asking you a lot, but why don't we just go down what are your expectations of the budget over these particular, because this is the budget for us.
So,
And I can ask, go ahead, Corey, you can
I'll
start
start.
off, and we'll just go down the line on what you expect to see with this budget, and we get a consensus, so these guys can move forward. We can get some talk from the community, and we can get off this subject, because we got a lot to cover.
so I guess I have one question in reference to the COLA. So if we do not do COLA, if we froze the COLA, and right now it's presently at 1.5%, if we froze that, does that mean there are no other merit raises, there are no other, this is just froze for the entire, everybody across the city? No raises for anybody?
We'll let Justin, the subject matter expert on the topic, talk about it.
Well, you know the answer too, Lyle. So Jessica Dvorak, HR Director. People who have been here 7 years or less, they will get their standard annual increase because we have a square matrix that we follow for our grade structure. But anyone else outside of those years, we have a lot of employees who have been here more than 7 years. The ones that have put in the time, the energy, who will get nothing.
Okay.
With
so-
no COLA, nothing. And I think that that's counterintuitive, honestly, that people who have been here less than that get something and they get nothing. So I'm I'm just advocating for the long-term employees. Like Lyle said, just be cautious on kind of what you're saying, because they're listening too.
Oh, this isn't an easy conversation
know.
to have. I mean,
But I-
there's,
And that's why I
This-
made the point at the start, this has nothing to do with.
this is not, yeah, I agree, Shane, it has nothing to do with
But you
feelings,
have to think of it that way too, where a new employee is getting something, you're making a decision for those that have been here long-term. So just being mindful of that. I don't know what it's going to
It's really
end up
tough,
being.
because I'm sitting here looking at Chief Rogge, and these guys are
Yeah.
making more calls this year than they did the previous year.
Yep.
They're on, and here we are talking about a COLA, and it directly affects his staff. And, they're out
Right.
there, and each year, they are doing more work compared to the year following. I'm just pointing out, because
Right.
you're sitting right there.
But to add to
It's not a
that-
fun conversation to have.
So that was going to my second part of this. Just because, is it necessary to say 1.5%, because that's what's proposed, straight across the board? Or maybe we should think about considering who really needs a 1.5% raise? And maybe we should do raises, or COLA raises, or just in general, by what grade or classification you are. Because the guy that's in the ditches, that's in the streets, that's in whatever department, and he's at the bottom of the barrel, he's the one who's living paycheck to paycheck. It's not the longevity of people that have gotten comfortable and have had good paying jobs throughout the city. Maybe we need to look at it as from grade standards versus this is what's best for everybody is 1.5% across the board. The other question that I have, that I think sometimes gets lost in translation and lost when we're talking about what you make, is what is your compensation? I'll expand on two things. One, health insurance is never going to go away, and it's always going to be one of those increasing things. So, if you're only after the dollar and the COLA raises and your merit raises, but you have the best insurance in town, maybe this isn't the job for you if you're chasing the dollar. If you're chasing a quality of life and a comfort zone of having health insurance, maybe this is the place for you. Along with your retirement, 7.5, or excuse me, is it 7%?
Yeah,
6? 7?
7.
7?
Yeah.
And after this year, 9 for some. Guys, this is, long-term, that's the picture.
To be honest, though, the 9% is police, and that was the state
I under-
statute.
no,
And they put bulletproof vests on every day. You know what I mean? So
I'm not
yeah, so just-
I'm not questioning that
Okay, all right.
or anything. What I'm just saying is that 7% for a retirement is phenomenal, and it's a long-term picture. When we're looking at the immediate COLA or the immediate raises, this is my opinion, is a short-term play. But if you want to work here, and I hope everybody does want to work here that is employed by the city, but look at the long-term game of you got the best health insurance in town and you get a 7% retirement. I mean, maybe we should be looking at the long term of what it costs versus the immediate dollar value. That's why I think we should maybe be looking at pay grades on COLAs versus just straight across the board.
And you mapped out the total compensation is a lot of factors, not just your salary. So I appreciate you saying that. Pension is a factor that would impact long-term employees. So that is a positive. If you're thinking about total compensation, pension would impact everybody. If you kept the 1% and fire got 1%, police got 2%, that still benefits the employee. So I think just thinking through all of the total compensation, we are not raising premiums for health insurance.
But I bet
Benefit
they
to the
didn't go down, though.
employees. What's that?
I bet those premiums didn't go down, though.
They did for those who will enter in a new plan, employee plus spouse or employee plus children. I don't know if you remember that presentation. That will save the employee money. So you're right, like it's a total package that depending on your personal situation, it's whatever benefits you need. And retirement is something that I think personally for me is a better benefit than COLA, but not to everyone else. I don't know. It's different for every employee.
So when Jessica's going out and her team are going out trying to find employees, she's competing against other political subdivisions and private business as well. As we had this discussion to talk about some of these cuts, we looked at division heads in the room and the support staff that were there and said, okay, the folks that are new to the city in the last 5 years or whatever it was, how many are here because of the benefits? Those that were new were here because of it. So what I'm getting at is, there's an incredible group of leaders here that oversee the divisional leadership, that oversee the boots on the ground, that make sure what goes into the budget, what you bring forth as a budget, they can see through to the best of their ability. So by having the COLA increase, the retirement, that full package that you're talking about, gives her the ability to go out and compete with everybody else to get the best type of employees to meet the needs and demands that you elected officials want. That's what I would have to say about that. But your point is, I get it, 100%, I understand.
I just wanted to get these guys to say something, because I would hate to nod our heads yes and stuff today, and then all of a sudden we get the budget ready and it comes up to vote and you guys got no votes. So I really would like to get everybody's opinion out here today.
This is good
So we
conversation, it's
can, we
healthy.
can just get to, yeah, we're gonna go down the line, right? Jim, you're up.
Well, and, you know, that's, the problem that I sit with is, I remember back in the early 2000s when we did a no COLA.
Financial crisis, 2007-ish or something.
And I
Six.
mean, it wasn't the greatest thing to have done, but it did work out. You know, so I'm not, again, I have to agree. I mean, the rest of the package is great. You know, if 15 years ago you told me that I would be a city council person, I would get nothing other than health care, I would have jumped. I would have campaigned for 4 years in a row for the next years that way, because it's a great program in your retirement and all of that. So I understand the requirements for the police and or for the fire and that, or that's mandated, but I question the amount of COLA. So, and I did back then too, and the HR person and I kind of went round and round. If you ever remember who that was,
I'm just saying, who gets impacted by no COLA? It's not, it's really the long-term employees, and
Right.
it is what it is. If there's a financial crisis situation, we can't have it. It's been since 2007 since we've had no COLA.
So, yeah, this is great discussion, actually, because we can have, even across there, between here, have disagreeing opinions, but we're still all on the same team. And we still all have to come up with a solution to bring forth a final product by the end of September. In 2007 or whatever it was, if you remember, there was a compression that took place where whatever step 24 or something above never got, or didn't get an increase, so it was below did. Don't quote me, but it could have been 2005, 2006. That threw what she has to work with, the salary matrix, out of whack until a couple of years ago when the annexation process took place. Over the course of that time, the way that hiring took place is when it fell into a specific timeline, there was always a financial burden that was bore by some that were hired in a certain window versus another. And all the divisions, once you're around long enough and can see that chart, that was a morale thing, because she could be hired 1 month, I'd be hired the next month, I'd be making more than her for almost a year before she caught up. So the equity is not there. So if we try and tell ourselves that the employees are not paying attention to these conversations, or the equity across the board from lowest level to highest level, we're fooling ourselves, because they absolutely are. When did you come on the council for the first time?
2000.
2000, so it would have been right after the dot-com bubble time frame. During that time of 97, 98, there was a hiring freeze. There was a big hiring freeze going on until, were you on the council at that time? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
So everything was at a financial crunch. And then when it opened up in January of 98, I believe, because this is about when I came into play, and the fire department had openings, we hired a whole bunch of people, because it was those slots were open, they weren't getting filled. They were getting filled with overtime, which still has a cost of financial and time as well, and wear and tear on people. So that's kind of the history of where we were versus where we are. Now, it's a deal now where we don't necessarily try and put that much burden on the divisions, especially with the call volumes that are taking place in public safety and the street repair that the street guys and gals do, the parks burden that comes along with all the expansions that goes along with that. So trying to balance that whole work demand versus work-life balance and demand expectation of the public. Trying to work our way through it, but that's great input. Do you have other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll go down the line.
And maybe it's because of my HR background as well, but I'm kind of with Jessica, and I was ahead of a company for 20 years. And being at the top, it's like I gave up a lot, but I would not expect people who were there for 18, 17 years to give up the same thing I was. So I mean, if I had $1 million sitting on a city council, I'd say, you take it back, Jessica, or just spread it around the employees, because that's where it belongs. But I don't believe that everybody shouldn't get something. I don't believe that. Now, I don't know, I know that the police and the fire are set, but I don't know that everybody else, should get the same amount maybe, but I think everybody should get something. Now, does that mean cutting something else out of a budget somewhere else? Maybe so. Maybe we have to look at it that way, because people first. I mean, people first, that's the thing. If you have good employees, you want to retain them. We've got long-term employees that have been here, and to say, you know what, we appreciate what you're doing, but we're not going to give you anything. I just don't, I think that's a slap in the face. And I guess that's my background coming through, but I want to see everybody get something. If it means cutting somewhere else, then let's look at that. If that's what it is, the scale's got to balance somewhere, but if we have to do that, I'm more for that.
Yeah, and that some of these cuts have made it into place to accommodate to the 1.5%. So your comments are heard and listened to. Very good. Do you want to add anything at this point, or should we keep going?
I've spoken enough, probably.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yeah, well, just with sales tax, I think it's been at least 2 years we've been seeing a decrease in sales tax, and I think it's been kind of hidden here by our development. So we've had some development kind of hiding some of the sales tax issues. I think I file sales tax for my restaurant in West Point, for Norfolk, for St. Paul. They've all been down to some extent. So I think the sales tax thing we've had, it's kind of been hidden. I think it's been going down for a couple of years. As far as the retaining employees and recruitment, I think everyone's going through the same issues we are. So I think to some extent, 1 or 2 years without a COLA, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to affect the recruitment that much. Possibly it is. I'm not a professional there, but I think about the changes that we've made in the private sector with cutting staff. That's not fun. Cutting hours and seeing how it affects people is not fun, but it had to be done for the business to survive. And it was difficult, and I'm looking at everybody out here today. It's not a fun choice. It's not easy, but I would rather I'd rather have job security than a small raise. And I think at some point, my full-time staff, my managers appreciate having the job that they have. It's a good job, rather than a small raise that could put the organization at a disadvantage. So, in my opinion, I don't know if I can vote for a COLA raise, just coming from that kind of perspective, but I don't want to have to cut services and cut city staff because we have a deficit too. So that's just where I'm kind of at right now. But again, Shane said, convince us why we need that 1.5%, or that it was 2.4, so I appreciate it coming down, but
Sure.
I guess in general, I get the recruitment part of it. I was very supportive of the PD, having their retention bonus. I understood how that worked, but every situation is different, so that's where I'm at right now. But
And I don't want any of you to think we're arguing, I'm
right.
arguing, her arguing with you on any of these input. We just want to make sure that you understand where we're coming from and the representation of the multiple divisions. So please keep that in mind. You're right. Probably the COLA increase is is not going to affect recruiting, but it might affect retention.
Sure.
And when we come across the 7-year folks, as they make those decisions to stay, and
Right.
if they don't, then we have a recruiting situation as well.
Right, yeah, I agree. I just, it's just it's very tough.
It is hard. If it was simple, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
And
The
I
answer would be
think
done.
to add to what you said, we also compare with other cities, what they do with COLA. So I think employees know what other cities are doing. So I think sometimes that it hurts when other cities do at least something. So I guess I would mention that too, that we would be kind of the anomaly to do nothing compared to other cities. But that's something, again, you have to consider,
Right.
when you're voting for that.
Right.
I know I already had my turn, but I'm just going to throw out there real quick. So we went down from 2.4 to 1.5.
Correct.
Can it go down at all anymore? Would that be a possibility?
Yes. It's it's a percentage that we can adjust accordingly depending on discussion. This is what we're proposing. It's a package deal, not just a cut in COLA, but splitting the comp study in 2 years. All of that has an effect, and that's what is in your memo to kind of map out those total dollars. We've done that in a variety of ways to kind of look out for all employees and not just a specific group. So it takes a lot of time and energy to kind of work that Rubik's Cube of all your benefits, pay, and think of every employee, long-term, short-term, police, fire, street, like they all matter. They're all, like you said, they're all important. And so that's why we're trying to be objective in these decisions and propose what we think is the right thing to do, but it's really up to you to vote on it. So.
Councilman Webb.
So when I look at the budget, there's two things I look at. It's the property tax increase ask. Constituents are pained when it comes to paying property taxes. And I look at the fund balance. So how much of that fund balance are we going to pull down to subsidize the money we're spending? Pull out of our savings account. And with the property tax, is the burden worth the pain? Is the burden worth to the citizen to, the burden worth the benefit to the citizens to keep up with inflation? Can they afford to? Can we afford to do it? That's the question. And when we ask, can we afford to do it, it's not, it's the entire community. Can the community afford to keep paying more property taxes? And can we keep selling this to the community saying, well, we want the COLAs, we want the pension increases, we want the comparability study, we want the settlements, we want all these things paid out, we want the bonuses. Can we keep selling that to this community to say that we can afford that? And will the community agree with us when we say, yes, it's worth it? When I look at this, I look at the comparability study. I think that should be a compass as people leave and as we hire, that we implement that as we can afford to do it. I don't think that's anything that we suggest even taking on in this budget cycle. I believe the COLA should be at 1.5%. I believe that the police should get their 2% mandated by the state legislature, and I believe the fire should get 1%, and I do believe the fire should be looked at possibly giving 2% in their pension increase, just as what they do as a job, working 24 hours, working weekends, putting their life on the line. So for me, I see the value of the 1.5% COLA for city staff. But I also see the value of the pension staying with police and fire. To what degree we can do that for the fire, also to make them equal with police. To reduce our property ask to zero, and to reduce the amount of money we're taking out of our ending fund balance. That would be my thought process. Subject to change and subject to be persuaded other ways, but that's kind of my feel.
The fire was legislatively driven as of last year, so it went up incrementally 1% over 3 years. So theirs actually started last year, it's just the span of 3 years.
Okay.
Police is a 2% right away, just like
Yep.
Randy said, to kind of help balance the two
Where
groups.
would the police, so if the police are at 7 going to 9, where's the
Correct.
fire at right now?
Kylie, can you help me with this one? It's
Yep.
13
So-
to 14.
So currently, fire puts in is mandated to put in 8.7% of their pay, and the city matches 13%,
So I would say,
13.5,
so
essentially.
they're less than the police, they're more than the police station right now.
But they don't pay Social
They don't pay
Security.
Social
Yep,
Security.
that's
So
an
they're
offset of Social Security.
different.
So I
Yeah.
would say 1 to 2% per fire, whatever Roggy thinks is right with that. And those, I think public safety is the foundation of economic development. Everything in our community comes from public safety. So that would be my recommendation is keep the COLA, get rid of the 1% pension increase across the board, give that to the police and fire. And the comparability study, we got in that situation over a period of time and we need to correct it over a period of time.
The comparability study is primarily public safety
I
impact.
understand that.
And I know you've seen that. I just want you to keep that in mind too, that we're trying to fix some disparities there in our public safety.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
I know what you're
I
saying.
know that's important to you, but that is
Absolutely.
the bulk of that.
I'm just afraid that what we want, we can't afford.
Sure.
And what's fair and equitable isn't always equitable and fair. And so, when I worked at Nucor, our facility was doing amazing during the 08, 09 market crash. Nucor said, as a whole, we're sending money to corporate, but they said, as a whole, Nebraska needs to pay and share an entire company-wide struggle right now. And so we didn't get any COLAs. But the following years were great. And we were compensated for what we didn't get that year. And I believe that's what could happen here. I believe the brighter days ahead and we'll get there, so. Just my opinion.
Thanks for your input.
Councilman Arns?
You know, I get to go last, so I get to hear everybody else's comments. And some of them stole information. Sue, for one, she, so I think there's three things, you know, you kind of look at. You look at personnel, you look at services, and you look at expenditures, and it's kind of those three things that you gotta look at. Sue mentioned, you know, good employees, really, really hard to, they're hard to find, they're hard to keep. And I would say probably the last, 5 years I've been here, I've been able to see the employees, and honestly, I would say they're good to great employees. So I wouldn't want to see that cut. The second thing is services. And again, I think we're in a situation, when I think of services, first thing I think of is police, fire, water, sewer, everything we need to keep this thing going. And there's no room to cut there. So then the last thing you get into is expenditures. And how do you control those? Well, capital expenditures obviously is one part of it. The other part's personnel, and I think we're kind of left with that aspect. And with that, I look at it and I think, okay, it feels odd because we've got employees who are asking for money, and then we're sitting here saying, okay, where are we going to be? I think it'd be really interesting if the employees who had no financial interest in this, what would their opinion be, right? They'd look at it and go, well, you don't have the money to increase these, so why would you do that? So I understand fighting for your team, and I understand the division heads should be doing that. I do think, it's been said before, Andrew mentioned it, I don't know if hiring employees is necessarily set on a COLA increase, because that's nothing you can ever guarantee when you hire someone. So I don't know if it's really a selling point, but if I'd look at probably in that 1 to 1.5% COLA, I do agree. I think there's more expenses out there for everybody, and whether it's the low end or the high end, I do think that there should probably be something there to keep our employees, because we don't want to replace them. We want to reward them for the extra work they're doing. The fire, obviously, it's statutory, we're gonna keep that 2%, I'm sorry, the 1%. I think that should stay. General employees, I would probably propose maybe 0.5% when it comes to a pension. You can spread that over 4 years to get that too. I just think, in this case, we just don't have that extra money to give out. I mean, love to. Like Sue said, $1 million out there, let's spread it around. We don't have it. So I don't want to cut personnel and I don't want to cut services. I think the only thing we can look at is what's the additional expenditure, and I look at that as probably being the wage. So.
Okay. What do you want to do now, Mayor? You want to let citizens talk yet, or?
I think that was a good, I tried to sum it up
Yeah.
earlier when I started. That's kind of the same thing I'd been hearing, so just wanted to share that with everybody before we got too deep into this. I think that's a good response to Randy's proposal, review, I guess. At this time, I would imagine we probably would, if there's people from the public who would like to speak right now, please come forward. And again, we're speaking on item 4 here, so. We're going to cut it to 4 minutes today. Instead of 3 and 5, we're just going to go 4. I'm joking.
Okay, so Steve Jessen, and first thing I want to say is I really appreciate every single one of your guys' comment today. I mean, you all, this is what it's supposed to be about, and I want you to know that the people do appreciate this effort that you guys are all doing here. I cannot commend you enough on this, okay? So I want to make sure you know that we do appreciate it. So I listened to you, Corey, especially. You started it out, and I agree with him. I just about agree with everything you guys all say. The one thing I will tell you is that there's some of you that have private business. You have, and out there in the private sector, it's not like this. I mean, the benefits in this city are really good. People work for the city because of the benefits, and the way I understand it. And if you talk to most of the people that do do work, they do talk, they work for the benefits. Heck, I mean, that's, when I was in the private sector, I had to get my wife to go out to pay for insurance and to get a job to do those things. That's what people out in the private sector are doing. They're having to work for big corporations like Nucor and all them that offer the benefit packages, but the small business person is struggling terribly. And to raise property taxes, raise all of these type of taxes on them, it's a burden on them, and we're making it very difficult for those people. So, that being said, like I say, when our business got short, what do? You have to cut, and usually it means somebody's gonna have to go, or you got to take a freeze in wages or whatever and try to get by. And if you can't get by, you got to cut back. And so I think the city is in the same position. And the other part about it is the sales tax receipts. The reason why the sales tax receipts are down is because you can't keep. I guarantee you, and it's been proven, when you raise sales tax, revenue will go down because people spend less. I can tell you, people don't come to Norfolk because we keep raising sales tax and expecting out of people town. They go to a different town. And so I'm just trying to tell you, if you talk to economists like Stephen Moore, Art Loffer, all those guys, they'll tell you when you hit a curve with continually raising taxes, you're going to go the other way. The economy will not. You can do all the economic development you want, you guys, but unless you create economic growth, and you will do that through private enterprise. And that's my comment. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the city's work, all the people that, I know several people that work for this city, and they're great people, and I think they got a good job. And I think most of them feel pretty good about their job too. But we're all in this together, and the city needs to be in together with the private sector. We got to do what we got to do to get by this situation. So thank you.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Jim McKenzie, I thought this was great discussion. I was very impressed with the thoughtfulness of all of you. And city has fantastic staff, always have, and great people. Just a couple thoughts. When I started for the city, I was a grade 25. When I retired 25 years later, I was a grade 25. No, I'm sorry, grade 32. So my grade didn't change in 25 years. And I see a lot of grade increases. And so maybe I would prefer, as potentially I think Sue talked about, or having higher increases on the, maybe under grade 20, and grade 20 above, maybe lesser increases, because price of eggs is higher for everybody, and when you're making less money, it hits you harder than it does somebody who's making more money, so.
Jim, just a quick question for you, not to throw you off, but wasn't that kind of what you were doing before when you were working for the city? Is that how the pay was?
So
were they increasing different grades at different levels at different times, or? Because I know there was a correction to kind of correct that a couple of years ago, right, Randy? And I'm just asking if that's what the model that was being used. Maybe Scott can answer that. I don't.
There was a lot of grade increases in the last 8 years, a lot, and a lot of it was management. I'm just saying that I knew what I was hired, what grade I came in at, and I never asked for a grade increase, and I had the same grade increase for same grade rate for 25 years. So consider that. Home valuations, I mean, we've seen those go up tremendously. I see a lot of price decreases now on homes that are up for sale. Are valuations going to continue to increase at the rate they have been? They may not. It might be something to think about in your long-term planning. I don't know where that's going to go. The comment was made about the extra work for the expanded ETJ for the planning department, and maybe it's mandated by state law, but why do we do that? I mean, I know people that live outside the city limits that don't have representation, they're in that ETJ and they're saying, why do I have to go through this? And if it's more of a burden for us, is that something that we need to continue doing? And maybe it's mandated, I don't know. That annexation was costly, and it's going to be continually costly because we've got a lot of infrastructure that we inherited through that annexation that needs a lot of attention. TIF, again, I'll urge caution on that because that gives away our precious few tax dollars. So enough on that. The other thing, remember, is if sales tax is down, that means our local citizens are hurting. And when they're hurting, I ask you to contemplate that when asking them to pay more. And I think you've done very well about articulating that. Again, we've got great staff, and you want to take care of them as best as you can, but you also want to look out for your citizens. So you've got to make that balance. Basically, that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else have anything to say? Jeff's here. Oh, sorry, Danny, come on up.
Hi, I did not plan on being here. I thought I was probably the best person to speak as I've been on staff, and if I was staying on staff, I would benefit from this COLA. I would encourage you to give something to our staff, whatever percentage that's for you to decide on, but I do think that for the employees, such as the two people in my office that have worked very, very hard, cover a lot. A lot of people in the private sector don't have the kind of talent that we do have here. I'm just being honest. We have a very strong staff. And I think that this is mostly going to affect the people that have been here the longest. And these people are incredible people. You have a great staff. Times are tight. I think they're presenting a plan. I know staff's been working really hard to get the budget tight. But when you have such a good staff and you have good people working hard, you don't go to a 0% COLA. That's my opinion. I'm not going to benefit from this, but I would ask that you reconsider and really think of the people who have been here the longest. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Jeff, just to bring you up to speed on what Randy's presentation was, do you want, I can just hit the highlights, or Lyle, do you want to hit the highlight? I can hit them real quick.
Well, actually, you want to let him weigh in, everybody?
Well, I was
else
going to
got
let him weigh in, but I was going to hit the highlights first, so he
You get
knows.
you can go for it.
So everybody got a chance to go, we went around the table, everybody had a chance to state what they felt this budget looked like. And we're primarily talking about the 2% increase for police, the 1% increase for fire, the 1%, this is on the pension, 1% increase for staff across the board on the pension. And then we talked about the 1.5% increase on the COLA. That's the suggestion right now, is a 1.5% increase. We also looked at the adjustment for wages. That was going to be split in two, for 2 years. Jessica proposed 2 years to adjust those wages. And anything I'm missing there? I think the ask on the property tax was cut in half, correct?
I believe that's correct.
They reduced the ask by 350,000. So the assessed values, with our mill levy set at 1%, they're reducing or not 1%, but our mill levy staying the same, they've reduced the ask by 350,000 of that increase in evaluations. And then the 400,000 that was suggested for the lodging tax has been dropped altogether. And so I think that's just a.
Anything to add to that, Randy?
The property tax was reduced from, I believe it was about 482,000 to 132,000.
482, okay, sorry.
And if we really get that 7% valuation increase, the assessor's estimating that would result in a reduction in the levy rate of about 1.3 cents.
That's where they're at. And then what we did is I kind of summed up what I had been hearing from council over the last few weeks, kind of and I've had a chance to talk to department heads about that, but you guys have not. And then, so everybody had an opportunity to just kind of speak on what they felt that looked like moving forward. So, kind of throws you to the wolves here a little bit.
And Jeff, those suggestions are not off the current budget. That was off the first recommendation.
Yeah, that was first recommendation.
So we reduced property taxes by 349,000, is that right? 815? From the original ask, right? Okay. And then, what's the increase? Randy, what's the increase then with the new ask?
The property tax would go up with this new ask, $131,974, which is an increase of 2.25%.
2.25%? Okay. All right, thank you.
And the COLA was reduced from 2.4 to 1.5.
Yep. So I'm just gonna put this out there because, for those of you who don't know, I work for the largest 401k company in the world. And I did a little research on our $1.9 trillion that we have in 401k plans. And just for the record, I'm not stating anything yea or nay anyway, but I'm just stating a fact. Norfolk's 7% that we currently offer puts us in the top 1% in the country for 401k plans. Moving it to 9% would put us in like the top 100 in principal, and I work for Principal Financial, just so everybody knows that. So I do have an issue with the pension going up that much. When we're already in the top 1% in the country. And that's in the country. That is not in Norfolk, Nebraska. That is in the country. That is $1.7 trillion worth of 401k plans. And before I just so the city workers know, I didn't have this thought until I did some research on it. So I just think that we need to reconsider a little bit on this, because not for the police or the fire department, those are first responders, and that is definitely mandated, but I just, when we're already in tops in the country on what we're offering in terms of in terms of a retirement plan, I think that, I personally would rather see more money go into the COLA than into that pension at all. To be honest, I don't see any reason why Norfolk, Nebraska should be in the top 100 in the country for our retirement plan. I'd rather see us give wages in the top 100 than give retirement, because that's a permanent increase on our budget. That's 2% over the next 2 years. That's a permanent increase. So like I said, just something for us to consider. And I apologize to all my city employees for bringing that up, but that's what I was elected to do. So, and I had a few more things at my disposal than a lot of people do. So I just, that's my weigh in on this. I do commend all of our staff for the work they did, and everything I asked of Scott and his team, they gave me over the last week, 2 weeks, and I appreciate all the answers you guys gave me and all the questions I asked. I know and all the asks I did, I appreciate everybody responding back to me, and very timely, and had some great conversations. But I just think we need to reconsider the pension a little bit more. So that's my feedback.
Okay.
Thank you. One guy we haven't got a chance to hear, Ms. Scott. Scott actually oversees everybody here, so I'd like to have him an opportunity to say how he's kind of feeling about what we just discussed.
Agreed.
Mayor, I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the open and honest conversation in this room. It doesn't happen often in today's world. Am I on, Kylie? Am I doing all right? Sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to talk about things, but it's necessary to kind of drill down and get to the core of what's going on. And so the spirit of that in this room today was good. And as uncomfortable as that might be, it was the right thing to do, because we can talk about that in whispers in the back room and in the shadows when nobody's looking, but we have to have those conversations when everybody's listening. So I appreciate that, even if we respectfully disagree with one another on the core issues here. But I would be remiss if I didn't illustrate to the elected officials, who I all respect greatly, what I see from the staff, because they don't have the opportunity to see what I see when I watch them come together and talk about these budget issues. And it's important for you to see them through my eyes, because I've been here for 3 decades, one capacity or another, and I've seen budgets come and go. This is a lean budget that was brought that way because of necessity, because of the economic conditions we're in. So there was a recognition by the staff immediately about that condition, and they brought forward conservative budgets because they knew what we were facing, and they made sacrifices. And then I asked them to come back again after that and asked them to bleed some more. And I watched a room full of people do that, give up and give up and give up things that they wanted to make their division whole, to serve the community the way they desire. And they gave it up freely and willingly, and in a generous way that made me proud of all of them. And then we came back a couple weeks later, and I made them do it again. And I asked these people that I'm supposed to represent, that I'm supposed to advocate for, and I asked them to give up more, to be mindful of these elected officials that deserve that consideration, so that you can look your constituents in the eye and say that you're trying to do the right thing. And that happened again, and they cut more and more to try to make this better, and to try to make it more palatable, so that you folks could make an informed decision that was respectful of the economic climate that we're in, but still allows them to carry on the mission that they're charged to do, which is Herculean at times, that they're being tasked with. And so I just want you to know that mindset, that culture, that commitment from the staff is real, and they really tried hard to come with a lean budget in consideration of this conversation tonight. So I'm proud of all of them for doing that, and the respect that they showed to the community, to the comments we heard here today, to each and every one of you, and the hard decisions that you have to make, because it was real. And so it's important for me to do that. I'm mindful of the fact that if we need to make adjustments to these modified recommendations that we brought forward today, we're willing to do that. We are going to have another budget meeting in August, which is not traditional. We've never done before, to have a chance to vet this one more time before it gets to that September final vote. So we implemented these extra steps so that there would be a full vetting, a full conversation, a full opportunity to get citizen input and feedback from all of you so that it's as transparent and fair and right and proper as it can possibly be so that you feel like when we're done, that process was legitimate, completely legitimate in a manner that taxpayers should be proud of. So that's what's occurred here, and so I'm proud of the effort of the staff to do that. I appreciate the conversation with all the elected officials who have been firm in their questions, but kind and considerate along the way. And so I've seen the best of both worlds. I've seen the goodness in everybody and trying to deal with a very, very difficult situation that we're talking about, that sometimes it's really hard to not take personal when you're talking about COLAs and raises and pension increases and all those kind of things that we're trying to strike a balance with here. So I truly appreciate the spirit of human behavior, quality behavior that everybody's illustrated here in trying to do that. It's heartwarming to me to see people have those kind of conversations and be mindful of one another and respect that we can have differences of opinion and still get through that to the other side. And I'm confident that we'll get to a budget that we can approve. And we'll use that opportunity in August to hear these conversations again and put something forward by September that we can all embrace. So I want to thank everybody involved and the patients involved, and I sincerely want to thank the staff for doing what I asked you to do over and over again, above and beyond the call of duty to try to do right by the elected officials that are sitting up here today. I appreciate that, but from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate those efforts. They do not go unnoticed. So thank you for that. Mayor and council, if you have any additional questions of me, I would be honored to answer them if I can.
Anyone? Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the synopsis of everything we've been talking about. I just would like, before we move on to 5, for Randy and Sheila's sake, I guess moving forward from this discussion, I'm going to start with what I feel like was expressed, and then we can't take votes or anything on anything right now, but you can just chime in if you think I'm wrong. Sounds to me like the 2% for the police department is solid.
Set in stone.
The 1% on fire is solid. The 1% on the remaining portion of staff looks like a percent of that over the course of a few years. Am I correct? Is that? The 1% on pension because this particular one had a 1% across the board. And we talked about police, that was resounding, everybody mentioned that, yes. We talked about fire, everybody mentioned that, yes. Now I'm going on the pension across the board with that particular question of how that moves forward. I heard 0.5%, I heard not at all. And so we just kind of need to get that iron out so that Randy can move forward with that. If that boils down to you taking kind of what you thought you heard and coming forward, or do you want to kind of have a direction here for the next budget? I don't know what I can do lawfully the way I'm talking now, but because we're not taking.
I would like to have directions sooner rather than later.
Okay. So, do we dive into that right now, or what do you think, Lyle?
Well, let me ask you this question. If we're looking at number 5, talk about number 5, general fund revenues, do you want to hear if we plan on going through the rest of these briefly, it's not going to take long for the division heads to get up and talk.
Good, yeah, let's do that. Let's just go through everything and we'll come back and circle up.
around.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on to number 5. Can I do that? Okay, we're moving on to number 5. Recommendations of the general fund revenue budget.
So I was just going to go over, and all of these have been talked about already, but just to recap everything that affected the general fund revenues. So if you look at page 1 of the cuts and adds, the beginning balance is increasing 20,000. That's because the parking study in engineering in fiscal year 24-25 is being removed, so that increased the beginning balance. And then, as we said, the property tax has been reduced. It's been reduced $349,815. The lodging occupation tax is eliminated. There is one add to the revenues. The senior center, we have that additional person in the parks budget, and we are recommending that the senior center fund that for the first year. So we added 100,412.
Is that a new position?
Yes,
And is that 100,412 a complete compensation package?
yes.
I think that's, right now, this is just a placeholder, because we have not
Right.
had discussions how that moves forward. So I'm assuming we're placeholding that for future discussion
Okay.
with council.
Okay.
This isn't a vote, yes, we're doing that, vote, no, we're not. This is just a placeholder in the budget in case when we move forward, because those discussions will happen this next fiscal.
Trying to do the due diligence,
Yeah.
and if that acquisition
Okay.
were to take place. we-
But ultimately,
we're
you guys
taking
will
it
have,
into
you'll make the
consideration.
decision on that,
Okay.
so.
And then the last item is just with all of these changes, there's an interest adjustment of 1,600.
Any questions for Sheila? Anybody in the audience have any questions for Sheila? All right, we're gonna move on to, go ahead. Sorry.
So how this is set up is this is the recommendation of the budget. So if we still have questions and we don't want to recommend this as it's shown, what we'll do is we'll table the recommendation of this budget. How this is, because what happened on the July 1st
Sure.
is we postponed the recommendation. So what we'll do is we'll table this and then bring this back in that August meeting or whatever meeting
Yeah,
here.
I think that's fine.
So,
Yeah.
so what I'll need now then is a motion to table the recommendation of the general fund revenue budget.
I'll make a motion to table the, Sue, did I interrupt you?
No, I'll take the second.
We've got a first and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? All right, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
On to item number 6, recommendation of the administration budget. And Randy, that looks like we're going back to you.
That will be
Sorry.
me.
Am I off one? Kylie, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. So included in the agenda packet is the same administration budget that was presented during the July 1st budget revenue session. So I will be working off of page 7 and 8, which is your cuts and add sheet. So in light of the revenue reductions that Randy outlined earlier, I, along with other division heads within the administration budget, like Scott had mentioned, identified potential reductions that would help lower expenditures and align with the budget expectations placed before us. So after careful consideration, staff is proposing the following reductions to the administration budget. So this is where we proposed changing the COLA to 1.5%, which dropped administration's budget $22,166. Decreasing the pension from 2% to 1% would decrease it $21,503. Removing office nameplates would remove $3,000. Removing the charging station subscription in the front of the administration building would drop $4,500. Removing a Motorola radio subscription would remove $600. Removing training for the mayor's out-of-state congressional city training would save just shy of $3,000. Dropping staff CPR training costs in half would reduce the budget $1,000. Removing HR dues for a publication would save $270. Removing the mayor's subscription to the Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal Star would save $825.
What am I gonna do?
Get on lines, get on lines.
Removing a new training room projector would save $3,500. Removing a council chamber lapel mic system would save $4,500. Dropping costs of new tablets with docking stations, which we do on an annual basis, would save $1,500. Reducing the transfer for your Norfolk area transit from $140,000 to $125,000 would save $15,000. Reducing the Keno transfer for turf contributions would save that transfer $12,500. Reducing the council priority transfer for the pedestrian crossing signs would save $17,000. And then based on what I heard, instead of reducing that council priority transfer, we will just remove the council chamber chairs from the overall budget, if I understood correctly, would save the administration budget $13,000. So altogether, if approved, these proposed changes would result in an additional $123,789 in savings to the administration budget on top of the $657,550 in reductions discussed during the previous review session. Combined, these cuts bring the projected expenditures for the upcoming fiscal year to $4,952,887, a total decrease of $781,339, or 13.63% compared to last year's. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Kylie, it looks like you came up to the mayor a little bit on here. Yeah.
So
I expect that.
there's been a lot of conversation with COLA and compensation and everything, and that wasn't an easy discussion to have. I still don't think it's an easy discussion to have, and I don't know if I'm still comfortable with it today. But on item 68, I noticed that we reduced the transportation from 140 to 125. If you go back, and I can't remember the exact number, but what was reported in the Norfolk Daily News was the state had a substantial reduction in the transportation as well. I just question if that is something that we should look at the way the budget looks now. And I don't want to get rid of the transportation. That's not my point. I'm just trying to look at some funds that could be available to help everyone across the board.
Good point, and you're right, the state has made drastic reductions with what they're doing with the transfer. I know Justin's on that board, but I feel like with leaving at least 125 as a placeholder, we can continue those discussions long-term from us. And then you guys,
Okay.
we can vote on what that looks like, if it's the same percent that's going in or the same percent that the state, if we're matching, but then at least those funds are available if that, and when that discussion comes up, because it will. I'm sure Steve will bring that forward.
Add a little color to that conversation. Right now, the DOT is telling us that potentially here in September, they're looking at year-end. They've asked all transit agencies to have their fiscal year-end budgets in what they call the portal by August 15th. They will review the kind of the balance forward. They're hoping that they can tell all the transit agencies that they can go back to full budget sometime in mid-late September. We won't know that until they get those budgets back. So I kind of like, the mayor's idea, keep some powder there so that you can have the conversation, and maybe depending on how that rolls through the DOT, you can adjust their agreement accordingly.
Yeah, I've been looking at it as like these placeholders, with the reduction in the beginning balance. If we do anything that we do reduce during the next fiscal, we'll go directly to the beginning balance to help increase that, so.
Right.
So there are some pluses with leaving that, if we don't have to cut, and we can all agree upon the top 4 things we talked about before we started this conversation, so. Is that all you have?
That is, unless anybody had any questions or identified any other expenses that needed to be cut that I did not identify.
I think it's impressive you were able to cut $781,000 out of the budget and reduce your percentage of ask from the previous year by 13%.
I think it's,
It's been a challenge, but we're getting there.
So now
So-
we need, what would we do for this here? We need a
so-
recommendation, or a motion to table?
yep, so since we're not comfortable moving forward with this 100%, what we'll need is a motion to table.
I move that we table for further discussion.
Or-
Second.
Motion second, discussion, please. Discussion from anybody in attendance? Seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, we're on item number 7, recommendation of group insurance budget. Jessica's going to be heading that discussion up.
So Kylie, do you want to share why this is on the agenda?
Yep. So this is not a general fund revenue. The reason this is on this discussion tonight is just due to the formalities we did at the July 1st budget work session where we postponed this specific budget to this meeting. So, if we don't have any questions for Jessica, since this isn't relative to general funds at all, we can
And I didn't
we
make
can
any
table this.
changes, so it's what was presented initially, and we'll just keep it on the agenda if that's what we need to do for the
Sounds-
next meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Unless there's questions.
Unless there's questions for Jessica. If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second, and then I'll ask for a discussion with the public. So we're gonna, okay, we have a motion, a second, any discussion from the public? All right, seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
We are on to item number 9, recommendation of the street budget. Will is, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one.
Engineering next.
Steve, I'm sorry, I skipped right over you. Recommendation of the engineering budget. Steve, you'll be leading us on that. That is on page number 8 in your packet. It's up on the screen behind us here, so. I jumped ahead.
Yeah, he's-
Oh, okay.
Me? Okay. Mayor and council, I'll kind of run through those numbers there. Similar to what you've been seeing. COLA, reducing the COLA to 1.5%, $5,756 reduction in the budget. Limit the pension to 1% was $5,462 reduction. Cut the comparability adjustments in half, that's a $6,006 reduction. Eliminate the training budget for the project engineer. Actually, we're eliminating a position from the budget. We had errantly left the training portion in the budget. So removing the training, that was a $2,491 reduction. We did hire another staff here 1st of July, and with this add delete function as the budgets, we are adding $2,000 for tuition reimbursement for that position. CAD computer for engineer 1, we're removing that from the budget for $750 savings. Removing the laptop docking station as well for $750 savings. And then within our line 68 of the budget, consultant services, that's where we had $20,000 in next year's budget earmarked for a parking study. And so removing that. Total deduction then to the budget, $41,215, add of $2,000 for a net of $39,215 deduction. That does adjust the budget down. I don't have the exact percentage. The original budget as presented was a 9.46% reduction. That was adjusted in the actual budget document. It shows 16.95%. That larger percentage is due to we're shifting a position, a part-time or a portion of a position that was sitting in the engineering budget last year. We're pushing that back over to the storm sewer budget. So that's why that is shown at 16.95% in the original budget document. But again, with these adjustments, it puts the engineering budget down about 12.75% year over year.
Steve, what's the total reduction you saw from the start of your presentation till these new adjustments?
The total,
Overall?
What's your total cut been?
Yeah,
From the beginning of the,
total cut,
not just here, but
yeah, Kaylee,
the entire time, from like when you put it together as a department head.
I think,
yeah,
admin was like 781,000. I was just curious to
give
what
me,
yours was.
As he's calculating that.
yeah, I'll tell you here in a second.
What's not depicted on here is, as each of these division heads go through their divisions, they look forward to what they're gonna need next year, 5 years out, and weigh that against what we talk about in staff meetings, sales tax reports, property tax reports. There's things that they are going to need in their divisions that don't even necessarily make it out of their walls initially, to get submitted to administration for or Scott or I or anybody else to cut out yet. But stuff that's gonna be needed. They throw in there what they need, we hack at it, get the first shot, and then it starts to become public. And then we hack again and again and again.
Yeah. So the actual reduction adjusting for the shifting of that position over to the storm sewer budget. The actual reduction in engineering budget this year is $155,480, or 12.66%.
Any questions for Steve? Any questions from anybody here today? All right. I don't think we have a motion and second yet, so I'd ask for a motion and second to table.
So moved.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All right, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, we're on to item number 9, recommendation of the street budget, and Will is already up here.
Mayor and council, so don't have a lot on ours, but the change in the COLA from the 2.4 to 1.5 is a $16,213 reduction. And the pension from 2% to 1% is a $14,312 reduction. And then we took out 20,000 of our building updates. Some of that is we're getting some work done this year. We didn't know if that would happen or not. So we could take out that 20,000. And then we left in our ground improvements for next year in the budget you got before on the first. With those three things, that's a reduction of 50,525. If we take off from when we started, I think we had some stuff in the capital outlay that we moved off there. We'd be just shy of 96,000, I believe. That's about a 1.5% increase, I believe, if I go back, and I don't have all that paperwork with me, but I think that's what I figured last time.
Sure. 1.5% decrease?
Increase.
Increase.
1.5%
Oh,
increase.
from last year.
Yeah.
Okay, any other additional questions for Will? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, I would ask for a motion for it to table this budget.
Second?
The motion second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we're on to item number 10, recommendation of the fleet budget, and Will is here still.
So, kind of same thing here. The COLA went from the 2.4 to the 1.5, which is a $3,892 reduction. The pension increased to 1% a year, was $3,712 deduction. And then building updates, 5,000. Got some stuff done in the fleet services building this year, but there's more to do just because we haven't done updates there just over the years, so we're just trying to keep up on that. So that's a total reduction of $12,604. And we already had a decrease in that budget, but I cannot, we also did, I guess, have a couple things in the capital outlay we moved out of there, so I can tell you what that is. Oh, no, we didn't on this one. But anyway, it's a decrease from last year, about 80,000 or somewhere in there, I'd say.
Well, I see in both budgets, the street budgets and the fleet budget, you have a deduction in building upgrades. I guess my question is that, are these upgrades that truly can wait, or they really should not, and we're just doing what we can?
No, so the street one, anybody's welcome to stop down there. We've pretty much completely remodeled that through that office and the buildings there. And then some of this was we had a sewer line that needed replaced, that we're gonna get replaced in this year. And then we were also having money in there, in the CIP, you'll notice the roof needed to be replaced on that building. But because of the amount of that got moved into CIP. So that gave us the chance to do this. We still have $25,000 in the budget for ground upgrades there for some drainage and different things. And then with fleet, we had some money in there, and Scott was able to do some stuff to the offices there. We started getting it remodeled, but we're needing, there's more to need done there. But since we covered some of that this year, we won't need as much next year.
So you're not shortchanging yourself on the building improvements?
No.
Okay.
Hopefully not, anyway.
Other questions for Will?
Any discussion? Any other discussion? Anybody here? All right, I need a motion, a second to table this budget.
Make a motion to table the fleet services.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that brings us to item number 11, recommendation of the Park and Recreation budget. And Nate is here.
Yep, I just had a couple comments on the COLA, just to let you know how it affects Parks and Rec. With minimum wage going up, that's a 12% increase for those lowest paying employees that we have in our department. Just 2 years ago, that was a 90% difference between our starting pay and our starting grade 9. There was a 90% increase from our 14-year-old that works up at the slide at Aquaventure to the person that comes and works seasonally for us for 7 months. That's now going to be dropped to 17% difference. So it's going to be very hard to fill those positions. And if we're not increasing those pay with COLA, we're just losing that gap more and more each year for us. So that's how it affects us. But
So that was kind of my comment, is that maybe we should be looking at grades versus just straight across the board.
Yep. And I think we did that with the comparability study. I think that was for us anyways. I'm speaking on behalf of Parks and Rec. It's just some fairness issues that we have with that, where we have a supervisor that's going to be making less than the person they supervise for the next 5 years. So that it's, that's what the comparability study I think did for us. It helped those gaps that we have and those problems that we're having. Hopefully that's just our issues that we're dealing with. I'm just speaking on behalf of Parks and Rec for that. We lowered our COLA down to the 1.5%. We lowered some of our computer expenses there as well. This was the second round of cuts. Before that, we had decreased by $218,000 for cab mowers and a few other things throughout our operating budget as well. And then also, most of our items are going to Keno now with capital and also the turf project as well. When we put money away for the turf, that is also going to Keno. Both those historically weren't happening. And then moving the senior center position into revenue. And that's a future discussion. Regardless, we'll be doing that this fall. And we'll bring that proposal forward. So those are our changes. We also have a few items that we've forgone this year that's affecting the budget as well, I believe. Berry Hill, we wanted to put in a volleyball court there. Nord Park Swing, we wanted to do something over at Nord Park. We haven't been able to do that yet. West Side Park Slide, and also a truck. And today we had our transmission went out on one of our trucks. So our equipment, so the things we're asking for, we're really, we're in dire need. So we've forgone that truck, but we have to put $2,500 into a new transmission. And that's another $80,000 that we've set aside already. So we've done quite a bit here, and we've done everything we can to get there. But everything's affecting everything else. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to. I do want to, on a positive note, our revenue has gone from $472,000 in 2021 to $738,000. We've had a significant increase in revenue. We're doing a very good job there, and my staff is doing a phenomenal job of looking at how we can increase our revenue. And since 2021, we've also had $5.5 million worth of grants, donations, and partnerships that have come into our department. And so we're doing everything that we can. We've got a great staff that's working tirelessly to make that happen and to keep these things moving forward. And we hope people are enjoying the improvements that they see in the parks, and we're doing our best. So,
Thanks, Nate. Anybody have any questions for Nate? Additional questions? Anybody's here today have any questions? All right, seeing no questions, I'd like a motion second to table Parks and Recreation budget.
Second.
All right, motion second. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we are on to item number 12, recommendation of the planning budget. And what we on page 9
Page
still?
9, bottom of
Okay,
page
yep.
9 for the cuts and
Right.
adds sheet for, go ahead, Val.
Okay. So for planning and development, like everyone else, what is attached was what you saw on July 1st. The cuts and adds, we did reduce COLA to 1.5. That is a reduction in just shy of $6,000. The pension down to 1%, that is just shy of $5,700. And then also the laptop and 2 desktops, the cost reduction was $2,000. So a total reduction in this cut was $13,692, and that is just over $75,000 reduction from last year, or 8.1%. And that's just what we see now. I kind of brought it up last time, we already cut from before what you saw, what Scott saw, was 7,000, so that was cut already for our permit system. And then we will need a new comp plan. Didn't even ask for that this year, knowing the fiscal budget we were in. So just kind of heads up that some things you didn't even see before, like Scott said, we cut so that you guys didn't have to make those decisions.
What approximately does a comp plan study cost?
In 2016-17, it was about 90,000, so cost of that, you're probably looking at about 120 to 130, I would guess.
Life expectancy?
Hopefully about 10 years, 10 to 20, 20 for kind of the smaller cities that don't have a lot of growth. You're probably looking at closer to 8 to 10 for something like us that grows on a regular basis. And that's where we are right now. So we're at about year 8 at this point in time. And we've had a lot of growth, and we have actually done quite a bit that the comp plan wanted us to do, like the downtown riverfront overlay and such.
So a lot of the boxes were checked, a lot of expansion,
Yep.
10 to 20 years, pushing that 10-year mark.
Right, any questions for Val? Any questions from anybody here? Right, seeing none, I'd ask for a table of the planning budget.
I move the table.
Second.
We have a motion second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Right, moving on to item 13, recommendation of the library budget.
Okay.
Top of page 4 there.
Okay.
So library has similar situation as everyone else has already mentioned. That reduction in COLA saved us $9,526. The reduction in pension saved $9,878. That comparability adjustment saves $846. For us, most of those comparability adjustments are on that really low end. Our pages that shelved materials right now make about like $13.45 when they're hired. So that's primarily where we're having adjustments is those very low wage jobs, just for your information. And then the computer adjustment and costs, because we have so many public computers, that ends up saving us $11,500. So total savings in this round of cuts of $31,750. A cut we had made prior was to our library materials. We reduced that about 6% for a reduction of $18,067. We don't have any capital expenditures budgeted for this year. We did not plan on that, knowing the situation was what it was. So no capital expenses for us this year, so.
Questions for Jessica?
Jessica, I do have a question. So the computers, 11,500, this isn't staff computers, this is actual public use computers?
It's a combination of both. Because,
Okay.
yeah, we rotate out 23 computers every year using staff and public computers, because we have about 29 computers for the public.
Is this gonna be a detriment at all as far as public use?
We actually get to keep the numbers the same. This was that adjustment in cost that
Okay,
Brad came up
okay.
with, like on using a more accurate cost estimate. Yeah, so we'll actually get to still replace all the ones that we need to. Yeah.
Good question. Others?
All right, anybody else have any questions for Jessica? All right, seeing none, can I have a recommended table library budget?
Motion table library budget.
Second.
A motion second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we're on to the recommendation of the fire budget, and Chief Rogge will present this to us today.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tim Rogge, your fire chief. The list that you see before you, as our city administrator Scott said, this is basically the most recent version of the cuts. There were right around $60,000 worth of cuts before we got to this point. The most recent would be what you see here. The COLA going from 2.4 down to 1.5. Reducing, instead of doing 2% out of the chute for the pension, doing that in 1% increments to get to 2 as the statute is driven. The comparability adjustments, that would be making that a 2-year process rather than a 1-year process. Computer replacement driven per IT and buying power and the prices being driven down, which is a great thing. And a headset system in our crash engine. That's a interop system that allows our folks to communicate with each other. So those savings are right around $145,000 or right at $145,294. In addition to that, I guess I would talk about probably the elephant in the room when it comes to our budget. And obviously it's centered largely around personnel cost. So I stand here before you speaking on behalf of all of our troops, the men and women that work for us. And I feel like I can do that pretty darn well because I cut my teeth here in 2002. I was a 20-year-old young man that came into this organization and put my trust in the city. And have shed a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for this community. And I see a lot of that in the troops that we have now. I was part of a group of 6 that was hired as Station 2 was being built. And it took a lot of courage for the council to support that and make that happen. And I'm pretty darn thankful that they did because it's made a huge difference in that neck of the woods. And there's a lot of people that can attest to that. And some of you personally can as well. What you see before you in our budget that stands out a bit is our request to add staffing. I've communicated with several of you leading up to this meeting, and I'm extremely grateful for those discussions that we've had, and I fully respect every one of your positions on the topic at hand and the dire straits that we're in right now. And I've been on the other side of it too, serving on school boards and church boards where you think politics wouldn't be alive and well, but that is wrong. If you're considering joining either of those boards in your communities, there are definitely politics there. What we've done is we've applied for a SAFER grant. We'll talk about this a little bit more in subcommittee. And that grant, as I've explained before, we basically won't have an update probably until the middle of August. That grant, over the course of 3 years, will be just short of $1 million contribution from the SAFER grant should we be successful. Our match as a city is 25% in year 1 and 2 and 65% in year 3 over the course of that. So you're looking at around $80,000 in year 1 and 2. That's compensation to include pay and fringe benefits is what they're covering basically. And again, we're asking to add 3 persons to our existing staff. The last time we added multiple people was just ahead of COVID. Luckily, we were blessed to do that. We added 1 per shift ahead of one of the single largest call volume increases we've ever seen from 19 to 2020. And then we added a +1 in 2022. That was at a time that we actually had discussions within those subcommittees to add more, but we could not do so due to some lid limits as I understood it at that time. So what we're asking to do again is add 3 people. We have a hiring list that was recently established within the last month, and we have 3 extremely strong candidates sitting at the top of that list should we be successful to get this grant. So I pride myself in advocating for the team that we have within our building. I have great admiration for all the divisions in this city and the way we work together. My primary responsibility is to take care of the people inside of our building. And I feel like I can do that by advocating for things like comp study and COLAs and adding staffing. So I apologize that you're in this position. We'll do everything we can to try to help get us out of it, but that's where I stand as a fire chief right now. Let's entertain any questions you might have for us.
One question. So in year 3, once everybody's fully staffed, grant's done, paid for, we're looking at about a $250,000 increase in payroll, correct?
Year 3.
Year
yes.
3, okay.
Yes, in year 3, 209.
209?
Just around 210,
okay.
yep.
All right.
They take those numbers based on total compensation now or what we expected them to be, and they're the exact same over 3 years. They didn't allow us to figure in any potential COLAs or insurance adjustments. They use what we know right now for that grant. So I talked to our grant writer this morning. She's a very optimistic person, which I like. Sometimes it's hard for me to do that. I'm a very cautiously optimistic person, but I'm very hopeful that that'll be in the cards for us, so.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief? Any questions from anybody here? All right, seeing nothing, I will ask to table the fire budget.
So moved.
We have a motion, a second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, we're on to item number 15, a recommendation of Region 11 budget. Bobby's going to take over for us.
I'm Bobby Rise, the Region 11 Emergency Manager. And the reductions and increases, we have a little interest adjustment of $100. And then it's the same as everybody's been talking about, the COLA from 2.4 to 1.5, limit fire and general pension increment increase to 1% this year. And the comparability adjustments in half brings it down to $4,564. For my budget, it's small, but that's the way it is.
Pretty cut and dried.
Yep.
Any questions for Bobby? Any questions from anybody out here? All right, seeing none, I'd like a motion to table Region 11 budget.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we're on to item number 16, recommendation of the police budget, and Chief Ty will be doing that. He is on page 10.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, city administrator. I was going to go over, I had something prepared similar to what I did on July 10th, but I can just summarize that quick. We, like Scott said, it's a maintenance budget. We're 123,000 over last year, which is 1.42% over last year. You can see there, we've made some concessions at 91,239. Prior to that, we also cut an unmarked car that we had budgeted for another 20,000. It was going to be a used car. So 111,923 that we have cut from the budget. The only other highlight is we've added 3 school resource officers, and the school's going to be paying for half of their wages and benefits. And that's going to come to about roughly 172,000 back to the general fund, which is already, I think, baked into that, right? So, so going off what the mayor said and hitting you with things that you really ought to consider that are things that we probably need to move on. I'm here to advocate for a matter of fairness, responsibility, and public safety. Bringing our dispatchers' wages up to the comparable levels. They've been behind for a long time, and we finally got a human resource officer that got us a comparability study, and we need to move on it because they were already behind. And to kick the can down the road, we're just going to be behind the 8 ball on it. So our dispatchers are not simply clerical staff. They are a critical part of the emergency response system. We said that the first responders are critical or pillars of the community, or an important part of it. Well, these are the important part of the chain. Often in the most terrifying moments of their life, people are calling 911. These dispatchers gather vital information, coordinate law enforcement, fire, and EMS responses, and ensure our officers and citizens remain safe. They are the unseen backbone of public safety. And our dispatchers go beyond that. They're also jailers. So they have to go back there in the jail and deal with some unpleasant people in the search areas that none of us want to do. The comparability study was conducted for a reason, to ensure we are meeting our obligations, not only as an employer, but also as a steward of public safety. To ignore the findings or delay action is to send a message that these professionals are not as vital as the rest of the first responder community. And that's simply not true. We demand excellence, accuracy, and professionalism from our dispatchers. In return, they deserve compensation that reflects the value of their work, keeps pace with similar roles in comparable communities. This is not a request for a favor. It is a call for fairness, for parity, and for the city to fulfill its obligation under the very study it commissioned. Failing to act now risks the loss of experienced staff, hampers recruitment, ultimately weakens our emergency response system. These individuals are not asking to be overpaid. They're asking to be paid what is right. Let's do the responsible thing. Let's recognize their value, not just with words, but with action. I encourage this council to move immediately to bring dispatchers' wages in line with the study and the findings, and not to break it down into multiple years. Thank you.
Chief, could you tell me, what is the longest dispatcher that you've had at the station currently?
How long have they been there?
Mm-hmm.
I can look
Yeah,
that up.
at least 25 years. We've had a pretty stable crew, but to bump up the to comparability would probably affect, I would guess, about 10 of the 16 dispatchers. The other 6 are still in their steps, and it wouldn't affect them right away, or so.
So essentially, with the comparability adjustment, half, that cuts 12,800 out of your budget. You're asking, if I'm correct, to
I
put
would
that
like
back
to
into your budget?
put it back in.
$12,854.
Yes.
Okay.
And Chief, I've got to tell you, I'm supporting you 100% on this. I believe in those staff.
Thank you.
Chief, if we do that, does Madison County increase their input into the 911 budget?
Well, we had cut our 911 budget by 20,000, and so they match ours. It's basically a third and 2/3, correct? And then, so they're actually, by us cutting 20,000, they're probably cutting theirs by 10, I would guess.
So if we bring on these increased
Without
costs
having
that
that
are,
right in front of me.
so if we bring on these increased costs, which are perpetual with pension and everything, do they come to the table with 30% cost of that?
Captain Bauer, can you?
Yes, sir. They do.
They've been very good to work with, so if there's a need, we'll get it to the, I think we can get that group together and.
Captain Mike Bauer, Norfolk Police Department. We put our budget together, and from our revenues, whatever's left over and whatever we think we need to carry over for future is divided 2/3 and 1/3. So yes, if we increase our budget by $12,000 in dispatch, we will take the $8,000 hit. They will take a $4,000 hit.
So technically, we're budgeting for 8,000 then, not 12?
Well, it's 20, it'd be 25,000, 25,600 roughly.
Correct, correct.
Overall, if you don't go half. Right now, this one they just presented includes $12,824. If what Chief is asking is to increase that by another $824.
But is that 25?
Or 12,000, I'm sorry, 12,000.
Is that 25,000 our cost or the total cost for, just want to make sure like that's, so there's still a portion of that 25,000 will get charged back to the county?
Yes.
Okay.
A third of
So
it.
it's not really a $25,000 increase on our part?
No.
So roughly a third of that would be shared,
Yes.
so.
Councilmember Beckman, I forgot about one of our dispatchers was a police officer for a long time, and now she's been dispatching for over 10 years, so 41 years she has on the department, so.
And I'll say, Chief.
1984 model.
And I'll say, Chief, when it comes to police, it's not just words. Our council has shown major action when it comes to supporting police, between payouts, bonuses,
Yeah,
police.
that's true.
There's no words up here. We're just trying to look at the entire picture
and to say, can we afford this? And so when we consider dispatch, I'm saying we need to take stress off property tax. So we need to look at our budget to say, how can we afford these things without putting any more burden on people that can't afford it? Right now, we're cutting a budget for the most vulnerable people in our community in transit, Norfolk Transit. And so I'm just saying, if we're going to do this, we need to find it in the budget to not increase property tax to do it. That's what I'm saying.
And the comparability adjustments for the dispatcher wouldn't be these police comparability adjustments that are farther down the page in the Madison County dispatch. So it's about $7,000 more than that, 19, yeah. It's 19,000, close to 20. What's that?
Will you say that again?
When we were talking about the increase in the dispatch budget, that amount that it actually increases is at 19,989.
It's in a separate budget. It's in the math.
Yeah. It used to be dispatch was a component of PD. Now dispatch is a separate fund in the budget.
Okay.
The joint.
That was the police.
Okay, so the 12,824 is just police.
Police employees.
And then with the Norfolk Madison,
Dispatch, that was.
$19,989.
Yes, sir.
I just gotta ask for just point of reference, did the dispatch get the bonuses that the other officers got when we gave bonuses last year?
No.
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I think they should, so. I think the main reason probably was we were significantly down on officers, and we had to retain the ones we had. And so that's where that came from. That bonus was a retention thing. And at the time, we were maybe down one or two dispatchers, not a significant amount of it, so.
We've done a good job filling those positions, so. So just for clarification, within the police budget, that 12,824 is just for police budget, not for the dispatch. So are you advocating to keep that at the full, or keep that at half and then look at dispatch and look at that separately and do full there? Or are you talking across the board, I guess, is what we're, so we just so we can, for Randy and the rest of us?
How would you, what's the easiest way to?
I don't want to put you, I'm putting you totally on the spot here, I know.
This would be,
Yeah.
There is a strong belief that the dispatchers need that full percentage. I think the officers may be able to divide that out
Okay, okay.
into the 1%.
So Mike, when you look at that, are we down to our sister cities as far as what we're paying our dispatchers? So does dispatchers in other cities and communities make more than ours?
I have not seen that study. I think that'd be a Jessica question.
that's my understanding.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm wondering, like, what's our reference point to?
So that would be Shell. They did that research, and they're not here to speak on that, but we would be bringing up to comparability with other cities.
So that study encompassed other cities?
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to add too that for retention purposes, Mike and Brian are trying to create levels for growth opportunities in dispatch so that right now it's just dispatch and supervisor. We're trying to build in a third tier to grow into supervisors or to give recognition to dispatchers who are bilingual or those that train. Dispatchers are taking on a ton of more responsibility, so we want to create a level 2 to put them in a higher grade. So we're trying to develop a tier structure and advance their grades, keeping in mind minimum wage is also going up as well. They're in those bottom grades. So
Jessica, would it be fair to say, when we get to the Madison County, Norfolk dispatch budget, it's not on here tonight, but just to, would it be fair to say it was around $20,000 difference between half and full?
Correct.
Would it be a wise thing to have that put back into the budget as a council opportunity to open up discussion this next fiscal, to have those discussions about different tiers or levels and increasing wages at that time? That way you'd give the council ample time to review the study without having sat here and gone through the study line per line, which I don't think anybody has. We've seen it, but nobody's got a chance to really go through it.
And we will talk about that at subcommittee next week.
Right.
In more detail, because I would say all the comparability adjustments are important. Dispatch,
But
yes, I think
we
is a
have left in
priority.
this budget half of that. What's being
Right.
presented today
This
is
is just half of
of that comp
Right.
study. So
Right.
my thought is, when we get to their budget, the Madison County Dispatch and Norfolk Dispatch budget, do we just beef that up so that you can have further discussion next fiscal about increasing that pay
Sure.
throughout I'm just
It's
spitballing
an
here, I
option,
don't know.
and
Because we
Madison
haven't
County helps
Chief, we
fund
haven't
it.
had those discussions.
Yeah.
And we need to have those discussions, and then we could go dive into the weeds on how you want to tier that, and I don't know, just
Yeah.
throwing it out there as we look at this and try to be fair and
The police
respect
op-
your wishes
Yeah.
and those sort of things, so.
The police officer one that you saw today, those are internal equity adjustments
Right.
to a few officers who, when they were hired, they're being paid less than some officers that have been here less than they have. So we need to get them above that for internal equity. So that's what the comparability study does, is tries to find those discrepancies. So if we don't move on the comparability study, that really, we're not doing what we should be doing. And that's why we did the study in the first place. So I think even for officers, you may want to be cautious on.
Of leaving the full.
We're not doing it at all, because we need to get those people adjusted.
Okay.
So that's what the police officer amount is for actual police officers. Dispatch is a later discussion.
Well, but what I'm driving at though is we're talking half right now.
Correct, yes.
Is that something everybody's okay with, a 2-year adjustment on?
I think we're proposing it as an option.
Okay,
I personally am not okay with it.
Okay,
But we're
that's what I-
trying to cut the budget
Right,
down
yeah.
and phase it in 2 years. We may, as a group, say dispatch should take priority and precedence because they didn't get retention bonuses. That's a fair statement. I think you could make that argument. And then Brian can propose that. Mike and Brian can possibly do that. So I do believe dispatch deserves that, but this isn't the budget we're even talking about.
well, and it's fair to state too, that on the back of the police department, our beginning balance was built up to what it is today.
It is, that's true.
And that is true. They did that by not being fully staffed, working a ton of overtime and keeping our city safe. And we have the beginning balance today because of the hard work that they put in, not beating up on everybody else, but they really did contribute to that. And so it's something to be
Right.
fair to say, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's important too, Jessica, as we go through that conversation in subcommittee, that you have some items that are just, not to say they're non-negotiable, but they're just priority in what we're doing. So, not that it's not all important, but what is actual priority in the organization to keep a healthy organization running and down the road? And what do we absolutely need to do and consider?
Right.
Versus what can be pushed down the road.
Right. Are you asking that as
No,
a question
no,
or just?
no, I'm
think
just saying,
through
like, when
that?
we go to the
Yeah.
subcommittee and I'm telling, so Randy can hear it, I think, when we look at the 1% pension across the board and we look at all these things, something's gotta give somewhere, so.
Right.
So during that subcommittee, you can hash
Yeah.
that out.
Well,
Any other
we're just tabling, so we'll probably you'll come back again and we'll be talking about it, so. But thank you for your honest input, and thanks to all the department heads for their honest input with us today. It's really healthy discussion, so with that being said, are there any other questions from the audience or anybody sitting out here today? Okay, I would ask to table the police budget. We have a motion and okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we're on to the housing budget, item number 17, and Rita's here to do that for us, so thank you.
So Rita Heineman, Housing Director. On our budget, we're one of the smaller budgets with the city, but we have an increase because of a retirement that I didn't know about, and we talked about it last time a little bit. There'd be an increase, an addition of $27,839 for an accounting specialist replacement to give 2 to 3 months of training, so they can train with that current person that's been in the position for almost 20 years. And then deletions would be the COLA down to 1.5 of $4,401. The 1% limit on the fire and the general admin pension to $44.51. And then the PC savings, I think that all departments had of $500. We just have 2 computers that we're needing. You know, housing, I think in communities, sometimes it's forgotten in communities, and it's so important because it's your low income and your moderate income. It's the working people that, and most times it's the elderly, the senior citizens, the disabled. In 28 years in housing, I've seen, you know, in the big cities, they talk about how there's so many people that don't work. Well, in the communities I've served in, across Nebraska, I would say it's about 5% of the population that housing authorities serve that actually just, I'm not gonna work. And so keep that in mind because we serve the people. Without that roof and that base for, that foundation for life, you know, then you have more crime, you have, you know, possibly more fires. You know, there's just so many of the city services probably have more of a weight if we're not taking care of the people. And so with everything is increasing in cost, but since I've come to Norfolk since November, you have a great community here. I grew up down by Hastings, Nebraska. You have a great community here, and you need to know that. What a great, I've been here, 8 months, roughly?
November.
And I'm really impressed with the community, the people at the city level, because I am not a politician. I care about people. That's why I got into housing in the first place. I think it found me. And so just know the people that are working for the city, I've sat through the city staff meetings, they care. All your department heads, the staff that I've come in contact with, everybody cares about the people of Norfolk, and that's something that I can be a witness to just as a newcomer. And I think we get in communities and we forget all the good things that we have, but all of us, whether we're, you know, we've been here 5 months or been here 40 years, just keep that in mind. Because there's 225 employees. That's my rough estimate. Jessica's probably got the exact number. But, you know, they're spending money here. I know whenever I move to a community, I try to spend money in the community because I know that helps with the sales tax and it helps your community grow. And so keep that in mind too. They care. And there's a value to that care that you can't get. And some communities don't have that. So just keep that in mind. But that's my little talk.
Thanks for all that you do. One quick question, though. I'm just to get my head right about it. So you have somebody retiring and you're hiring new.
Yeah.
So are you replacing the position and adding one?
No,
Or you just
we aren't gonna
replace-
ask. We need more staff, I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you. I
I
know
know
we
you
need
do. I
more
know you
staff.
do.
We're just making do with what we have,
Right.
and they have been for several years. But we're just adding like 2 to 3 months to,
I see.
with the benefits and
With the-
everything,
from-
that's just a rough estimate.
Okay, yeah,
I
that
did
makes sense.
find something out that during the meeting here, the housing study, I got them down to 19,000 from 20, so I just saved you $1,000 talking to them.
I think
yeah.
what she's talking about here is allowing an adequate amount of overlap because of the complexity of the job,
Yep.
the individual it's leaving to facilitate a smooth transition.
All right.
So,
Okay, yep.
Well said.
That's what I was asking,
Okay.
so. Any other questions for Rita? Any questions from anybody here today? All right, seeing none, I'd ask for a recommendation to table the housing budget. We have a motion, a second. Please vote. All right,
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
on to the fun stuff.
Back to the beginning.
Okay. So basically, I just wanted to get we've kind of gone through everything, right? Did we, I forget, did we, motion table we already did everything we've had to do, right? So now we're just in discussion?
We've gone through everything, so if you wanna open discussion on a certain budget, we would have to remove from the table. Otherwise, we
What?
can just have an open
I
discussion
think,
and review.
right, just open discussion review, that's where we're at right now. So, trying to get a general feel for where everybody's at after the presentations. Let's just start with the police department, 2%. I think that was unanimously supported by what I heard from everybody. Fire department, 1%, I believe was unanimously supported. Now let's go to the pension, 1% overall budget for the the rest of everybody, city staff. I didn't really get it.
I'm for 1.5% COLA, but I don't think we should be doing 1% pension across the board. That's just my feeling.
One suggestion was brought up to half that over 4 years.
Yeah.
Thoughts about that?
I think it should be 0.25% over 8 years.
0.25% over 8 years.
I'm sorry, I mean, I wanna give the city, I mean, I don't wanna tell the workers they can't have it. I want you to have it. But I also have my own, we have responsibilities that we have to take care of, and I don't know, I just don't see how we can be in 8 years, we'll probably still be a top 100 in the nation. This is not, I mean, and I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I wanna give them 2% right now, I do. But I'm more than happy to say it's 0.25% this year, maybe next year we can do 1%, I mean, but.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that the state legislature is acknowledging public safety as far as police saying.
I'm not talking about police or fire.
Well, but I'm saying, they are acknowledging that we are mandated to give them a 2% pension increase. They're not doing that for any other position.
I know.
So,
I agree.
So what's the difference between, someone that works at a different department in the city and the police? Do they deserve, or should they have exactly what police have? Are we asking them to work rotating shift, put on bulletproof vests? So that is my.
Yeah, Councilman Jensen, just a comment. It's interesting that you certainly are in a unique position with access to that data. And I think the data you read was relative to all 401Ks. I've got experience across multiple municipalities and state systems, college systems, and I don't think we're necessarily that far out of line from other public sector. I do agree that there's a disparity between public sector, private sector, absolutely. But I think if you were could scrub that data and look more specifically at public sector or public municipal sector, that would narrow down a little bit more, and I don't think we'd be in the top 1% in that sector.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what Steve said, we're a grandfathered 401K. I forget when we got in, but just shortly before they changed it so governments could not have 401Ks. So you're not going to see a lot of governments with a 401K plan. I'm not sure how many is out there, but it can't be a lot.
I can tell you that my company does do municipals as well, so they are baked into these numbers. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not against giving all of our city workers everything. I mean, I think what you guys do is I think you guys do fantastic work. I think we have a great city staff. I think I can't say enough about it, but I have a civic duty to 25,000 people. And I just think that we just need to think harder about that particular thing. I mean, yes, it's gonna affect you guys, but to say it's over 4 years or 8 years, I mean, if it's, the end result is still gonna be putting you into, rarefied air in retirement plans. I think that's what we need to look at this year. I'm not saying next year we can't do 1.75. If we have the revenue to do it, by all means, let's do it. Doesn't have to be an 8-year plan, but this year, we need to look at making it an 8-year plan. next year, we need to look at it again, differently. We want to keep it at a quarter, we want to make it up to a half next year. We have that ability to, just because we're saying it's 0.25% this year, but we're gonna get you to 2% in a maximum of 8 years, I think that's a fair and equitable statement on our part as a council, and again, I'll gladly be voted over on that. I mean, that's the council's, I'm just going off of my gut feeling tells me that this is the year that we need to look at it a little differently than maybe, you know, next year we can look at it again and say, let's give them the full amount next year, or 1% next year, or whatever. That's my thought. I mean, I did my research and I'm confident in my research, so, and what's going on in the world, not just in this little, and I would dare say that if I could narrow my search to Norfolk, Nebraska, I would venture out, we were probably in the top 2 employers probably in northeast Nebraska in terms of that. And the only reason I say that is because I have to include Nucor's profit sharing, which is a phenomenal plan, which we don't have. But when you look at other big industries in this town, they all are at 6%. All of them, every single one of them. We are a top 2 we are a top 2 pension or retirement plan and I just think, I hate telling workers that this has to happen this way, but you know what? I've worked plenty of years where I had to not get a COLA increase. I had to take what I had going. I've done that many times. That's part of the private sector. Like was said, it's part of the private sector. Some days you get raises, some years you don't. And I've been told, I've been in union negotiations, and I had to look at union and say, you can have your 2%, but you don't get any COLA for the next 4 years. Take your pick. They always pick the COLA, always. They don't ever pick the increases in their thing because they know that they've already got a good deal there. So, you know, unions just posture to make it so that you'll give them what they want in other places. They posture in their pension. So I just think we need to, like I said, I have a unique perspective. I've been on union negotiation boards before. I've done lots and lots of contractual obligations in Chicago for a large Fortune 5 company. And so, like I said, I've been told as a department head, you have 1.5% to give out. I don't care how you give it out. Some people get 0, some people get 4% but the overall package has to be this. And that is that's a non-negotiable number in the private world. It's non-negotiable. When you get told as a department head, this is what you give out for raises, that's what you give out, or you risk don't take this as applying to us. Okay. Please don't. All department heads, I'm just saying this is the private sector. I worked in it for many years in union negotiation, all kinds of stuff. And I got told many times, Jeff, this is how much you give in increases. It's a dollar amount. Works out to 2%. If you want to give 3.5% to your best employee and 0 to your worst employee, that's on you. But this is what you're going to give out. Period. End of the story. You figure it out from there. Well, so you figure it out, right? I mean, that's how it works. And, you know, we're fortunate because if we worked for the federal government, there'd be mandatory layoffs at certain points. Not talking about this, I'm talking about historically in the federal government, there are wage freezes all the time. There are all kinds of things going on in the federal government. That's the danger of working for government, is that you're subject to the whims of taxation. So, like I said, that's my opinion, and I trust me, if someone would have said to me 2 months ago, Jeff, do you think this would have to happen? I would have said no. But I've done a lot of work on this, and I just can't in good faith say that 1% for the next 2 years is the right thing to do for our city. So
Well, you mentioned you figured it out, and I think that's what we're doing here. We're hammering this out.
That's right.
It's getting everybody's thoughts and opinions out there. Were you concentrating on the COLA?
Yeah, we can go to COLA. I think what would be beneficial then is we've had some suggestion across the board with the pension. I think what is clear is with the 2% and the 1% for police and fire. I would think with the next presentation we have, just break it up, show us the numbers on what that does to the budget, so Jeff and Justin can see where we're at. We can all see that, what it does to, you know, how that affects and what grows, what doesn't. But I think if you could give us a couple different options.
Okay.
I think that'd be beneficial. So that's how I would present that. And then the council can look at that, and if it becomes something that is, something goes away and this becomes something that's very affordable or deemed affordable, then I think we have more discussion on it. But as of today, I think you've heard kind of where everybody's at, so. Does that make sense, Randy?
Yeah, Randy, Sheila, do you have any clarification questions to compile that?
No, I think you're asking Shane for like, what does a 1/4%
Yeah,
do
just
for us?
give
What
us
does
the
a 1/2%
percentage, right.
do for us, so on.
Yep, so just for subject to
we can do
review,
that.
that we reviewed today, we'll review that in our next meeting in August and present something to the September meeting. So the next thing we'll talk about is the COLA. Obviously, that was a hot topic today. Everybody had a 1.5 in their budget they presented today. We saw the reductions from the 2.4 to the 1.5. Just kind of see where everybody's at on the COLA as far as moving forward with that for Randy to show within the next budget. I think I heard from Webb, I'll speak for you, if you're in favor of the COLA, if it works out with a net zero increase in the property tax gains from the assessments, right? Is that what you said? Okay, so that statement was put out there. So if there's a way to show the COLA with that, I think you got all your votes. Now, if you don't show it, and if it doesn't work out, obviously, because we can't make additional cuts, we'll probably look at the COLA a little harder. Am I right? Okay, so I think that's.
Could he give us like a 1% versus a 1.52, just to
Sure,
have
sure.
some?
Or
But
how about we say, well, it was 2.4 was the first suggestion?
Yeah.
So how about 1.2, having it, just saying, what if we have the COLA instead of 1.5?
Sure.
Just to look at.
Well, I
just
think
to look at.
what I'm saying is that's fine to go to that, but they already figured a 1.5 today. So it's an easy spreadsheet with the 1.5, and then you could project it out for you with the different types of increases. So if you could do that and have that ready, that'd be very beneficial for everybody to see. And then show that if it works with a net reduction in the overall increase of the mill levy, or I shouldn't say the mill levy, because we're not increasing the mill levy. We'll be reducing the mill levy.
I agree with Councilman Beckman, councilperson. I would like to see 1%, what that number is, because I'm kind of in favor of the 1% and 0.5% for pension is kind of my point of view on it.
Okay.
So.
I think it'd be beneficial just to have those for review, and then that way we can make the recommendation to council.
Can I ask a hard question here to the board, to the
Yeah.
council?
Shoot.
Is priority for you property tax?
I would say
Yes. Is that where
Yes.
you get the most arrows? So if we as a staff can concentrate on that, keeping that, that's
If you
what,
can swing,
that's what keeps.
that's what's left, is 131, yeah.
This is my thinking on Lyle, and I spoke to a few people about it, but I think property tax is a huge conversation throughout the entire nation right now. So if we can be proactive as a community to understand that and be on the front side of that topic, if something does come down the pipe as far as with our budget, we'll be ahead of the curve. I really believe that.
Okay. All right. Continue, Mayor.
There's a lot of department heads here looking at me. I'm hoping am I explaining this right? You guys, what we're trying to do here? No?
We'll figure it out.
Okay, all right, good, okay. On to the next thing would be our comparable adjustment study, where that fault plays out. What was the total amount of the comparable adjustment study at full?
234.
You talking strictly general fund?
Well, just overall, let's just talk overall. It's 225, and then you guys, what I saw today was you half that. So I maybe speak on that a little bit.
So what we're proposing today to get the lodging tax, reduced property tax to where it is to split that in 2 years. So 50% for next year, and then they'll get the other 50% in the next fiscal year budget proposal, assuming we have money for it.
Right.
So we're just gonna shoot, that's what's in front of you today is just the first year.
Okay.
We don't have dispatch as an example in front of you today, but that may be a department we do something a little different with, and we'll talk through that.
Yeah.
One question about that comp study. Now, when was that presented to the council? Because I think I missed that. Was that presented to the council in full for review? Or was it
You
presented to?
received it via email.
Right, but did we have a discussion for review?
Not a presentation, not a
Okay.
full-blown. So we had the consultant here
Yeah,
for
I
the
saw
first
them.
session.
Right,
We didn't go in the weeds with her, but she was prepared to talk through the weeds.
Okay.
But I think you wanted to keep it high level at that meeting.
yeah.
We'll do that more at the subcommittee for policy and procedure.
Right.
I know not all of you are in that. The ones that are not in that are welcome to reach out and get further explanation from HR. I'm happy to do that. I said that in the email.
And that was a 2 what, or 200 and what?
It's around 225,000 approximately. He has the exact figure.
Yeah, and
Okay,
focusing on
so
the general.
to be fair to this year.
That's for the full comp
To
study.
be fair to this next year's fiscal, just because of how we usually do things and how things work in order, without having that city council review, would it be applicable to try to include that in the fiscal, but not adjust payroll until we have the review and then we can vote? Because I'm a little bit concerned of, and I'm not trying to, but without having a good review in front of the council to go over some of us are a little bit, because we didn't know exactly
Right.
what department got hit hardest, what didn't, and then today we learned, dispatch has been hit really
Yep.
hard with this. So I feel like it's hard to kick it out without having a solid review, but we don't really have a lot of time to have that review before we get into this year's fiscal. So my thought would be, how do you include in a line item in your fiscal? It's a lot of money. It's 225,000. I mean,
That's
wasn't
for
that long ago?
all of it, not split in 2 years.
Right. I mean,
So
it wasn't
you're
that long
cutting
ago
it down to
when we hired an
80
economic
something.
development director, we had to adjust the mill levy. That's, you know what I mean? It just, that was 100,000 at the time. So
Sure.
it's a big chunk of change when it comes to, when we're talking about 138,000 left in the mill levy or not. So to be fair to the city employees, would it be, can you try to figure out a way to leave that in the budget as a placeholder to be portioned out whatever this council seems necessary to get us back on track? And that may not be the same for each department, because obviously
Sure.
it felt like today we were ready to go ahead with the dispatch, and then all of a sudden you look into it a little deeper, most of it's in police and fire anyway. So those are the discussions we need to have with Chief Froggy and
Right.
Chief Ty, and so I just wonder how we,
I think like right now with their proposal, they're at 1.5% COLA and they're at a 0.5% pension. Or is it 1% pension?
It's 1%.
1% pension. So they're at 2.5%. So if we go if they show us numbers at 1% COLA and a 0.5% pension, and then what can they do with that another 0.5% that they weren't spending otherwise?
Right.
To honor that comparability study?
that's
Kind of
it.
like what Councilman Jensen said.
Yeah.
With his previous employer, this is what you have to work with. Where do you want it to land within the organization?
I just feel like without having a comprehensive review of it, it's hard to look at it.
Yep.
Also, Jessica, could you maybe give us, and at a later date, whether it's the next budget review or whatever, like a priority? Like say, okay, if I could only do one department, it would be dispatch. If I could do two, it would be dispatch and and like
Right.
prioritize, and maybe, maybe Parks and Recs maybe is three, or there, or even within that, like say, listen, our seasonal workers in parks, they need it, but maybe this other part in parks doesn't need, like
Sure.
prioritize, so we can go through and say, okay, we get it. These people really do need a raise.
Sure.
These people would be nice, but we can feel comfortable passing that buck down to next year.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, people where we would be in danger of losing a seasonal worker because we're only paying a minimum wage or whatever.
Right.
We need to address that, I think, most
Yep.
importantly.
We can go through that through subcommittee next
Okay.
week, and are you on that subcommittee?
I'm not on that sub, but
We can go through and I can state what, I do believe is priority, public safety is priority.
absolutely agree with you on that.
I agree with that as well, but we have to look across the board, if there's internal equity adjustments. Is it fair to spread someone else at 2 years versus 1 year? I think we just have to be careful when we're doing that. I would rather, adjust COLA or pension to accommodate the comp study across the board. That would be my opinion. If we can find a way to do that, I think there's still another round for us to propose.
Well,
And
I just
so-
want like, so we have both
Yeah.
options, like here's,
Yep.
you know, we do these things, we can put the whole comp study in, or we can do it
Right.
this way and put in these priority places
Right.
first, you know, like just to give us another option.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think of.
Okay.
We
different
can do
ways
that.
make
That
it
would also
work.
be acknowledging the importance of the study.
Yep.
To let the rest of the employees know that we paid X amount for this study and being
Yeah.
responsive to
Right.
what it says.
Right.
Yeah. It puts us at risk if we don't look at the comp study.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. The comp
I
study
can't
is,
say that enough. So I appreciate you wanting to look deeper into that so that we can look at how we want to distribute those funds. Okay, thanks.
thanks, Jessica.
Okay, so that would probably, unless there's any other discussion, I think that would conclude.
Any other clarification questions for stuff we need to compile for next time?
Sheila says she understands it, so.
Let's just talk a little bit about next time. Let's go through, what's the next meeting on the docket?
Yeah, can you run the dates?
So the next budget review session is going to be Thursday, August 7th at 4 PM.
And explain what's
Thursday.
going to be on that budget review.
So completely up to you if you want it to be the second round of this exact one. Otherwise, we can go to non-general funds.
What would
So-
you guys prefer to do? On the, I think the 7th, in my opinion, we should be voting everything forward to council on the 7th.
I
It's-
agree. We don't
it's-
want to go any later than that. That's the extreme outer limit
probably
of
a
how
good
far we
idea.
want to go into it to allow staff
So-
to
Right.
get stuff done.
they-
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll hit everything. I think it should be a fairly, I don't think it's going to take, because we've had all these, we've been diving into everything, so.
This
so
would
much-
be our annual, normal timeframe of having those discussions. So we're ahead of the curve here.
Okay, so on that next, now let's just get it out there, what we're going to have on the next, on the
Yeah.
7th, what's all going to be on there.
Okay, so on the 7th, what we'll do is we'll bring every single budget back. So we're not gonna go through these presentations again, kind of similar to what we had today. And then we will just recommend the COLA, the pension, everything as a recommendation. And again, for the record, these are preliminary budgets. These are not final approval. They are subject to change pending exigent circumstances. Final stamped approval is in September. These are just approvals, recommendations.
So essentially, in September, we'll have, first meeting in September, we'll look at the budget. If it doesn't pass that meeting, it'll table to the next meeting in September for final approval to be accepted by the county on the 30th.
We'll have to have the public hearing at a meeting separate
Yes.
Right.
than
Yes.
the council meeting.
Just
Right, yeah, I
usually
forgot about
We'll have the
between
property
first
tax
and
information
second
back by
meeting.
that time too.
Right.
The hard
And
numbers.
that's coming back on the 30th?
August 20th, the.
August
assessed
20th,
value.
okay, okay,
Yep.
August 20th.
Yes.
And budget goes to the county on what date?
You're asking like when it has to be
Yeah,
filed?
when you turn-
Yeah, September 30th.
September 30th, so
The
okay.
state and the county.
So you've got September 30th final, and then the 20th, you'll hear on property taxes on the 20th. The 7th will be here for the, okay.
Looking at September, September 2nd, September 1st is going to be a holiday this year, so September 2nd is the first Monday. September 15th would be the second meeting. So having it all knocked out in the first 2 weeks plus one day, or a special meeting on top of it, should the need arise.
Okay, and as a raise of hands, how many staff members like this process we've been using so far?
I do.
Favor? None?
It's-
Halfway? Not a lot of love on that one.
That's okay, and
Just different than what
that's
we used
okay.
to.
But me personally, as we make decisions at divisional level, it's good for us to know exactly what you're thinking so we can accommodate that. It's just like the importance of council retreats and strategic plans. We can put it all together, what your goals and visions are as a council versus what they see, what they need within their divisions to accomplish what they have to do and what they want what you want to accomplish as well. So I know that these meetings are hard. They're hard to have these conversations. I'm confident none of you want to say, no COLA, no pension increase. That's got to be painful for you. It's painful for the employees to hear. It's painful for the division heads to hear. However, this sort of communication leads to a better end product, and it builds trust between you, it builds trust between us, and it builds trust between all of us, as well as the community. So I get it. It's hard, but it'll be a better product in the back end.
I'll say as my time on council, Shane, I think this has been the best budget process that I've been a part of. I feel like we're working with city employees in the council, and we can say when this passes, this is an actual unified budget. And I believe that we've all had equal input on it to come to where we need to be, so.
Yeah.
I've appreciated it. It's been intense, but.
I would personally say, I mean, that this is how it works, and at big companies, at multi-million-dollar companies, this is how it works. Your department heads get together, they present their first budget, their second budget, their third budget, fourth, fifth, however many it takes to get us there. And so I really appreciate what we're doing, and I hope that all of our employees appreciate how much, we don't give up all this time because we get paid really well up here.
Citizens get to tune in here at home. It's good.
I would like to say that, I can feel the tension a little bit in the room. I don't believe that this is a tough discussion for your council. I get it, because we're in a weird situation with when it comes to the revenue part of the budget. And I don't think anybody up here wants to state that they don't have any sort of respect in what these guys do. And there's been a lot of improvement that we've seen we've seen snow removal. I mean, just with what's gone on with snow removal, that's one thing top of my head, how that's changed over the years and the time people put in. We've seen, planning and zoning, they've changed their website. It's a lot easier to do things with that department. There's just and I could go on and on about different things. So there has been in Parks and Rec, they've done a tremendous job over the last few years accommodating what the other mayor wanted done and what the community wanted done. So there has been and I can see where it's tough because you hear from us in our planning or the retreat, we call a retreat. It's not really a retreat anymore. It's more of a meeting. But they used to be retreats, but we don't do that anymore. They kind of got called to question, so we quit doing it. But, in those, to be fair, you went around and asked the council what they wanted, and every single one of them was a increase in expenditures in either parks or this and that. So I can see where it's probably like, what in the are you guys doing? Because one thing you tell me to do this, and the next thing you tell me to do this. So I can see where it's very confusing. But at the end of the day, it boils down to those revenue streams. And that's it. It has nothing to do on anybody else. I really hate to see us turn into a city where we're we and they.
Yeah.
It really needs to stay us, because if it does go we and they, then it's just gonna be a bitter battle to the end. And I don't ever wanna see that. You never know, that could happen someday, but as of right now, I'd really like to see us work together to get through these hard times, because it's a tough time. It's unprecedented of what we've seen in past years. We experienced a tremendous amount of growth over the last 10 years. I think the last 2 or 3 years, it was inflation-based growth. We saw that coming, so with that being said, we'll work together. You guys have worked your tail off. I mean, I listened to budgets today where they're cutting 50, 60, they're down 13% from the year previous, or 12%. I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of giving up and a lot of promises you probably already made within your department that you're cutting back on. And I think that's all appreciated. So we'll get through it. We'll keep moving on to the next day, and just as long as we can keep working together. So,
Amen.
But, all right. With that, if anybody else have anything else to say, it's open. I'm gonna go out the back door. So, if that's all right? No. All right, meeting adjourned.